in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, could either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
I can't even remember. Damn, what did I do? I think it was decent. It was decent. It was I can't even exactly remember. And that's bad because I mean I eat out a lot or get, you know, I eat a lot, but I know that weekend I did good. I know that weekend I actually did good because I know I made sure I worked out. I've been getting non-water beverages gradually out of my diet. Like I went out to eat a few times and I just ordered a water. That's it. Told them, give me a water and keep them coming. So that way I just was drinking a lot of water the whole time. So
are you a fan of sparkling water or no? Sparkling water with some lemons or
oh shoot. Okay, what I want to make sure I understand what we're talking about. We're talking about that stuff they call it water, but it don't taste nothing like water. It's no, like it's almost like 0-calorie soda.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, well, that's probably your experience of it in terms of it's just water with it's carbonated water with gas in it.
But does it have like flavor in it? It'll have like a
you don't want to get that one. What I meant was like you actually take lemon and you put it you take slice up some lemon, you put it in sparkling water as opposed to getting sparkling water that says it's because that stuff is just tastes like crap. You know, so water with lemon, not that crazy, right? But sparkling water with lemon, you know, that sparkle, that extra lemon bite, you know, you feel like you're having a good time. It's a party. Who knows? Maybe you might like it.
Yeah, no, I've been happy with the with drinking mostly water, and then every now and then, you know, and I just gotta have some flavor. I'll slip in, like I said before, like a Mountain Dew Zero or something like that, just to, you know, when I just gotta have that flavor, that taste on my tongue. But that's what I've been doing. But yesterday, I think I went yesterday all water, only water. So yeah, I've been doing better with that, and been eating less and drinking more water. So I've been working on it. So I got to make sure I commit to getting to the gym. So, you know, I've been working on it. Trying to establish more order, like you say, trying to get more order in my life. Clue in the building. He says, Ike with the sniper gear. Yeah, you do look like you about to go take somebody out. Godfather style. Shout out to Clue in the building. Shout out to Clue. Appreciate that. Appreciate the $5 super chat. So all right. It's 46 people in the building. I don't even got to pull it up on my screen, I don't think yet. So I haven't even hit the like button. So make sure that you guys are doing better than me at least, and hit the like button on the stream because we're about to get this thing started. This is actually a good conversation, a good topic. It is a problem that people have when we get done having sex with a questionable chick. We probably shouldn't have. We probably should have left that one alone. But you know, we that's not exactly our strong suit. Turning away some strange. It's not exactly our strong suit. And we joke and we have a good time and we have locker room talk and we talk about the ladies and getting it in and you know, this one time when, you know, I had this one night stand when I was out there with my collar popped and I just was I had more game than the average game dude that night, man. I was killing it. I was on fire. They couldn't resist me. You know, pulled off a threesome that night. We have our fun with it, but we do need to well, we gonna have some fun with this one too. But it is a sensible conversation to have about when we realize that post-nut clarity kicks in. That post-nut clarity kicks in. That after the fact, we realize that okay, we probably should have made some different decisions there. But that post-nut clarity, we realize, man, it's like everything that we should be doing and should not be doing, and it all comes in. And somebody super chatted the question. I forgot who it was that super chatted it, but he asked a very simple question. How do you extend that? How do you walk around in that mode for longer? Because when it wears off, we resort right back to the animal that we were before, and we're on the hunt. We're on the prowl. We gotta get that kill again. So we're gonna start it right there, and I'm gonna pass it to you and see where you go and where you take it. Oh wait, before we do that, something that I didn't even immediately think to do, but something that's worth doing. Good old Urban Dictionary. Give me 1 second. Let me type in post-nut clarity.
Good one.
And type out that. Hold on. Type out that working definition.
Let me go over my channel.
That's post-nut clarity, defined on Urban Dictionary as the immediate clear-mindedness or soberness an individual gains after orgasming, I should say. In parentheses, they say busting a nut. The concept of post-nut clarity has been bandied about for years and in many different contexts. All right. That's the working definition of post-nut clarity. Just wanted to read that before I handed it over to Ike. And before I go, Daryl L. II, thank you. He says that was me who asked Big B. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate you giving us the topic today, and I appreciate the $5 super chat. Appreciate it. So, all right. And just some backstory. If I understand it right, you're saying that you've done previous content on this, if I'm understanding.
Have I?
Well, I posted a link in the chat that that just check out Ike's channel. Right when I was saying that, okay, never mind. Now you're just supposed to check out Ike's channel. I thought that you were posting something that you've said on this before. When I was looking up the definition, you started posting that. But wrong, right? I got you. You just posting your link. And yes, moderators, especially as more people come in, when you see the numbers jump up, that means like when it goes from 50 to 70 or 70 to 100, new people are in the building. So make sure you periodically drop in Ike's link in the chat. Make sure you periodically drop in Ike's link in the chat. But going forward here, let's gonna pass it to you. I think we set it up good enough. People have an understanding if they didn't have an understanding of what it is. So let's proceed forward. Good.
So you said, Sunday service and so on and so forth. Now, It will be interesting. Now, this is not a topic that was discussed at your church, was it, Bernard?
No.
What would you think if this conversation came up? It maybe doesn't have to be the main service. Maybe it was on the side, like where it was like, we're going to talk about post-nut clarity in room J5 Saturday. You guys are welcome. What would you have thought about that? Maybe they would have worded it differently, but
no,
exactly what they're talking about.
One good thing about the church that I went to back many moons ago when I used to go to church, they did used to actually have some real conversations.
Good.
Like I was married and there was like a couples class, couples ministry or whatever. and so it was a Sunday school class just for couples, or it was a Sunday school class just for this group, or a Sunday school class just for that group. So they would spend half the class talking about the normal Sunday school lesson, and then the other half of the class talking about you know, the whatever the side topic was, where sometimes we'll pull out a completely different book written by some author that was dealing with marriage and relationships. And so I'm saying all of that to say it would turn into just real conversations. So the church that I went to, it was not completely far-fetched that it would be that subject could have happened, but it never came up. But if they smuggled it in and we started talking about it, because in the midst of those marriage conversations, some sort of heavy but still filtered conversations did come up. So it wasn't that far-fetched that it would happen. But overall, typically, no. I could imagine maybe the youth pastor and like the youth Sunday school class with the youth pastor teaching the Sunday school class. I can imagine him possibly bringing that up with the young men, perhaps. So if it was one for young people, high school, college age, I could see that. Deacon Dave in the building. How long does post nut clarity last? For me, 24 to 36 hours. Then back to attack mode. Shout out to you. Thanks. I appreciate you. That's what do you think about that time frame right there, 24 to 36 hours? What do you think about that?
I think that's not bad, like as a range. If I were to put my number on it, it's probably a little less than that. Just maybe I'm more of an animal than he is. But that's I think if we go back to Snuggles, the five, you should have a special $5 song for the $5 king or queen or whatever.
Yeah, we're questioning the gender, humanity, personhood, sentience of Snuggles. We don't know what
funds, everything.
We don't know what Snuggles is at this point. I've heard that he's not a man. I heard that he's not black. I heard that he's not, we don't know what Snuggles is. Snuggles is the robot. Okay. The existence of Snuggles is very questionable right now. But shout out to Snuggles. However, human or not human, black or not black. Okay, and Mr. Fantastic 824 has confirmed somehow that Snuggles is a non-black woman. Do you know the exact race of Snuggles? I mean, okay, so she is out $5 in everybody. So I mean, hey, she's welcome. Pull up a chair.
There you go.
Snuggle 668 in the building says, "This is my tithing for today." By the way, Bernard, did you ask a question I asked of you? Did you ask a question that I asked of you yesterday about the collaboration with Max City Limit? I don't know what you mean about the I don't know what you mean by that. Did you ask a question I asked? Did you mean did I answer a question that was asked of me yesterday about the collaboration with Max City? I don't remember the question, so just ask it again. But be that as it may, Snuggles, appreciate the $5 super chat. Yeah, Snuggles is just confusing me more and more now. But just ask, go ahead and re-ask the question. Yeah, go ahead and do that. But shout out to Snuggles. Go ahead. So you were saying that the 24.
Yeah, I'm saying that time frame makes sense, and I think that that question, asking the time, for example, leads us directly into the approach that I would like to take to this whole thing. And it is the approach of going into the fog and clearly feeling our way through, seeing it. Because basically what I'm saying is this: post nut clarity suggests some kind of pre-nut fog, some kind of trance, something, right? And I would like to go there, right? Because that's where the scene, that's the scene of the crime, right? That's where we gotta go if we're gonna try to find a solution. Not the question how to extend post-nut clarity, great question, right? Turns out that you have to flip it on its head, and mainly where you have the most agency and the most control is understanding what the pre-nut fog is, right? So it's at the fog end of the situation that we're going to try to take it. And I would like to take it from a very, what is the experience of the fog approach? Some will call this a phenomenological approach. What is the phenomenon of the fog? Okay, can you recall the actual sensation, or what does it feel like to be in that fog, right? Because that is a key critical question, rather than focusing on what happens after, which is an absence, like a negation, negativity. Like there's something that's a curtain has been lifted. It's like, well, let's talk about why that curtain was there in the first place. Who put it there? What does it look like? How do we handle this curtain? Right, that kind of a thing. So what is the fog like? If I were to ask you that, then Bernard, you described earlier, right, that things get done, you regret later. In the clarity you can see, but what was that? Can we get a clearer picture of the fog?
To just put it in one word, horniness. That's one way that I could just simply just put it, just real short, sweet, and simple. Horniness, the biological urge, the itch. It's like an itch that you gotta scratch.
Good.
And no matter what you're doing, if you got a real bad itch, everything else just comes to a complete stop. Everything else comes to a complete standstill. Okay, I hate saying this. I don't know why it happened. It happened to me twice. Well, I was in the middle of sex and I had like a really bad itch on my back. And and normally you could just push right on through that. But for whatever reason, it was a real bad, and I had, oh shit, hold on. I had to get it. I'm like, wait. I had to get it. So a bad itch is like you got to stop what you're doing and get it. That's why when I watch movies and I see somebody tied up, in movies they said you dress like a hitman today, but you see one of those hitman movies, you see somebody tied up and duct taped, and I just I can't help but just sit there and think, they've been tied up like that for 3 hours. I know at some point their nose started itching or something like that. That drives me crazy when I watch movies like that. I'm like, you have to scratch the itch. And that's what it's like with the when you got to get one off. That itch has to get scratched. You have to get it. And so that's what's going on there in my perspective. It's an itch that you just have to scratch. And somebody hold on real quick, one moment. Yeah, somebody, I believe wait, no, nobody sent a cash app. Somebody thanked me for a cash app, because I send cash apps to people from time to time. I do a little bit of sending out cash apps here and there, but yeah, so there it is. It is right there.
You put some words to it. And well, what do you think about the approach anyways, in terms of like, now that you went from post-nut clarity, like, okay, let's go look at the fog, and then like you put in a word to it, you put a whole complex of sensations, which is the itch, and whole complex of situations whereby you are forced to scratch that itch. So do you see any usefulness in going deeper like this, like looking at it and be like, well, what is it? How does it come about? Where is it? Right? What causes me to do this stuff? Like, is there any point to this, what they call the phenomenological approach?
You saying, is there?
Yeah. Do you see a point to me asking that question, even as to what is it?
Okay. It's fair to ask the question, because I think as human beings, we do need to think deeper about our biological urges and our cause for the wild. I mean, that's something that we talk about on this show a lot. Like, I'll acknowledge that that yes, we are, when we get horny, that's your genes telling you to go replicate your DNA, basically go nut in a chick. That's what your body is telling you to go do. Go propagate your DNA. That's what your body is telling you to do. Well, we obviously fight against that every time we put a condom on. We're not doing what our genes are hardwired to do and hardwired to tell us to do. So, as human beings, we should be in a place to where we have to take a step back and analyze our whys. So in that sense, no, you are absolutely 100% right on point to ask the question, what is it and why is it there? So that's actually perfect. Snuggles is responding to what she said in the super chat. He's I asked you a question about you and Ike doing a collaboration with Mac City. I would like to hear how the conversation would be with all these different thought processes in the room. Yeah, I don't know how that would go. Big Mike is he's an intelligent guy, but I haven't heard him on any other subject other than his main go-to subject. So I don't know how that would work with, three of us in the doing a collaboration. So I don't know, but no, I have not talked to Ike about that or Big Mike of Mac City Limits about that. So as of right now, that is a no. But where was we at? I forgot. Snuggles threw me off that fast.
You were just acknowledging that going back and looking at the fog, seeing what it is, and perhaps you added the why aspect is key, right?
Yeah.
But the what is really also, that's the phenomenological part. Like, what is something, right? So you said it's like an itch. So there's a sensation, right? Mm-hmm. There is a sensation, an urge, something that kind of focuses your attention and causes you, like you can literally feel it wanting you to go there and scratch, right? There are also thoughts in your head as well. In other words, it's not just a feeling in the body. There's probably images in your head going on as well that are pulling you in the same direction, making it enticing. The image in the head increases the feeling in the body. The feeling in the body increases the image in the head, right? Just like an itch, as a matter of fact. Because if you think about the itch, and they'll think about, like, in other words, as a matter of fact, if your hands are tied, it probably starts itching a little bit more. Just the fact that you can't get to it. Those kinds of things. So there's a loop of thoughts in your head in this fog again. Feelings in your body in this fog, leading you to do something. Mm-hmm. You suggested that we can look at it and that we can ask and so on and so forth. So my question for you now is, are these feelings and these thoughts, is the itch you, or can you separate yourself from the itch somehow? Or does that question even make sense?
Is the itch me, or can I separate myself from the itch?
Or what is the relationship between what we will call you and the itch? Because we've been suggesting in the way we're talking, like, oh, we can look at this, we can feel the fog. Like, okay, there is like there's a me and then there's the fog. There's a me and then there's the itch. I want to scratch the itch. Blah, blah, blah. So if there is at all, even if so far just in speech, a schism, a difference between you and the itch, then it's a question of unconsciousness, and what you need to bring to unconsciousness is awareness. So the first thing I would say is that there's awareness that needs to, in other words, the fog is a lack of awareness. And if one thinks of things in a very just
go wash it,
simple, programmatic way, like logical, step one, step two, if there's an awareness problem, if there's a darkness problem, you're like, okay, can we just bring in some light? Right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's what we're trying to do here slowly. Right now we're doing it from a certain distance, but then the thing is to remember to do the same thing when you are in the middle of the fog. right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I asked you, is the fog you? You still have enough awareness. If I say, hey, Bernard, stop, resist that itch, right? You can do it, right? What
Yeah.
the itch in your back? Yeah.
Yeah.
I put a gun to your head and I say resist it.
Yeah, I can I can resist the itch.
Exactly.
I cannot scratch it, even though I said it happened. It happened twice during sex. I don't know why. My back started itching so bad that I had to stop and had to get to that itch. I couldn't power on through it. It was a real bad itch. But no, what you're saying is right, that you are separate from whatever the urge is in there, and then you can make yourself not do it. It's like you could choose to not go eat a cheeseburger. You can have a salad. You can make that choice, even though your body is calling out for the cheeseburger. Your body is calling you, telling you that you need to get on Tinder and just start swiping until your fingers bleed and see how many matches you get, and then just go right for the kill right on the first message with the matches. That's what your biological urges are telling you that you need to do. But you're saying your point is that those urges are completely different from you. It's almost, yeah. So I definitely get your point there.
Yeah. And just so we stay, because there's a danger here of because you're like one of those preachers, or that I'm messing with you. But when you get the idea, and then there's a danger of running away. But no, it's like this whole phenomenological approach is you stay there. Okay, now we say, okay, because I didn't say it's completely different from you. We're just looking at it and we're saying, oh, we talk about you and we talk about the itch on your back. In one frame, it's like the itch controls everything. It's like the itch is 90% of the frame. There's only a small border, right? And you can almost visualize this in terms of experience of anything which you may call the drive, the passions, the itches. There's a way where the itch takes 90% of everything. It's like all itch. Everything you see is itch. Everything you think is itch. You got to scratch the itch. If I put a gun to your head, okay, and I say, Bernard, don't scratch that itch. You scratch the itch, I'll blow your brains off. What does the frame change to?
The desire to not get shot in the head becomes stronger
gun
than
now
the
feels
itch. Yeah.
The frame becomes now gun.
Mm-hmm.
So framing is the way we go in terms of just passing through time. We have this cycle. In this context, we could call it desire. You have desire, you have the chase, you got the catch, satisfaction, and then there's this thing called ennui, which may or may not happen every time. Ennui is the feeling of emptiness. In other words, after you get something, you're just like, Personal clarity does also take that form. There's a form of like regret, but there's another form of just like, what was that all about? What is this? So
let's keep it real, Ike. How often does how often in your life? Okay, no, I don't want to out you. Trying to think of how to word this. I mean, you seem like a very orderly person. Now, I know if I poll the average person in the chat, they probably will say all the time they've had that moment where they got done and it was just like, what the hell am I thinking?
The thing about it is we see this thing across the board in many different respects. Mm-hmm. This particular itch tends to be one of the strongest ones, right?
Yeah.
Hunger is right next to it, for example, right? And things like, and both of them bleed into each other. That whole food and sex thing, they're right next to each other in people's little adventures.
I always say food, water, sex. Yeah, well, or maybe it should be water, food, sex. I don't know, but oh no, wait, no, I say I forgot the main oxygen. Oxygen.
You see, it's right up there.
But yeah, because oxygen. Without oxygen, you're dead in like 2 minutes. Without water, was it like a week or two? Food, a week or two, something, give or take. So the things that you need to actually physically live, okay, you got to put those first. but once oxygen needs are met, food and water needs are met, sex is like the strongest human drive we got going, and we got to have it. And like that part is non-negotiable. We do got to have the sex. But real quick, Sincere cracking up, it says, good morning, brothers. Can chime in today. Can we talk about religion this morning if you're interested? Huge supporter of show. Religion is not the topic, even though I actually did think that we would
Oh no, I would disagree. It very much is the topic, and
okay,
that's why.
Good. I'm glad you agree, because I was about to say we may stumble into that, because religion has been one of the biggest driving forces of trying to push, actually probably trying to get people to extend their post-nut clarity. I remember there was a time when I was a biblical fundamentalist, and I was terrified by the parts of the Bible that said, and to paraphrase, I haven't read it in a while, but ultimately to thinketh is to doeth. To think about adultery, you have committed adultery in your heart. So to think about fornicating, it extends out to you've fornicated in your heart. So that could go, but if you read that and take it literal, that would put a 15-year-old horny boy in a position of just constant,
this reminds me of what Mr. What's the guy? J. Ibrahim was saying when he called Islam low level and Christianity high level. Basically, this is the issue with that. You see what that thing is saying is a high level thing. In other words, Christianity is never quite like A, B, C, do these things. It's more like, well, he without sin cast the first stone. It's like, did you tell me what to do, or did you just play a cycle? Did you just lift things to a different plane? Christianity tends to do this. So basically what it's saying there is similar to he without sin cast the first stone. It's saying that when you do in other words, like, sin is ubiquitous. Like, don't try to be like, oh, I am a non-sinner, right? Even if you thought about it, it already happened. And if you stop and you think of it through, Bernard, right, you know that it's just only in factual reality, in data reality, that sometimes certain thoughts and certain actions are different. It's like, you're like, you know what, the way I thought about that thing, I might as well have done it. Like, in fact, I didn't do it, and there will not be consequences in reality. But so Christianity takes things to that level, and there now you have to then think further. But the thing is, that 15-year-old kid can't think like that, right?
Yeah. No, I was just thinking literal. I need to be a virgin until I get married and just walk around, and I'm getting horny and just feeling just utter shame and guilt and just feeling just terrible. And I can admit it now, but I came kicking and screaming to this confession that me getting married so young at 19, it had a lot to do with me having that a more fundamentalist view of Christianity. Now, obviously, from 15 to 19, I stepped out of it. I did some stuff. I was a normal teenage kid. So I had some sex by the age of 17 and all of that. But there was a moment when I was really trying to be a virgin and to married. And then even when I slipped up, I said, okay, I need to go back. I need to be a born again virgin until I was married. Like, I was actually trying to do that. I was that deep down into the whole religiosity of it all. But I like the way you just explained it right there, that it wasn't necessarily telling me that, no, if you think this, you might as well have done it. So obviously doing it is wrong, thinking about it is wrong. So you just completely just know nothing.
Yeah.
And so it was a teenage fight to maintain post-nut clarity, but it was an irrational fight. And so we realized it's an irrational fight then. So we gotta go that extra step. How irrational is the fight now? But so we'll talk about that, and we'll dig into that. Snuggles back in the building with another super chat. And I went to the channel, like Fantastic said, and I think I actually saw a video of Snuggles. I'm gonna put Snuggles on the Summer Jam screen. I'm gonna put Put her on the jumbotron. That's gonna be interesting. Oh, no, I'm not gonna. Well, I mean, it's public. I can go. Yeah, you can go. I think this is her. I think this is her. But Snuggle 668 in the building says, "Morning, Deacon Dave. Morning, Mr. Fantastic. How was everyone in the comment section doing today? Did you all have problems being ushered to your seats? Ha ha ha. Very, very funny, Snuggles. I see all of your jokes hit different now that I know that you're a woman." But no, the person that I saw was black, so I don't know. So that's why I'm confused. I'm confused about what's going on with Snuggles' identity, but she has somewhat established personhood. But okay. But all right. All right. What up, Deacon Dave says, "What up, Snugs? Good morning, chat. Like the stream on the way in. Thank you very much. Appreciate that." All right. So, you said Deacon Dave says post-nut clarity was 20 men at 16. Yeah, that sounds about right. Fired up, ready to go. But anyway, so where were we? We were talking about
we were at frame.
Yeah, okay. We had got to the frame, and then we started talking about my my high school trials and tribulations of constantly, climbing up on the cross and persecuting myself for having horny thoughts. Yeah. Yes, the link will be dropped today. Be patient. Let's try to. We and Ike going to try to make it to the end here. But
I think I scheduled 3 hours, so I got till whenever 9 a.m. over here for me.
Okay, all right.
So
the frame.
So basically,
the frame. Yeah,
the frame. Right. I talked about a frame in this particular context. We'll be talking about a desire, and then the chase. We talked about the itch. The frame is filled with the itch. I put a gun to your head. The frame is now about the gun. You're chasing. The frame is about the chase. You get the stuff. You achieve. There may be some relief. There may be some of that emptiness as well. And then you were asking me, how many times does that come up? Not in this particular context for me, but we see it in many other contexts. There are many things we do and you're like, why did I just have that freaking donut? Why did I do this? In other words, once you've gotten the desire of the frame, and then it's like the picture disappears before you get a new frame, before you settle down back into what the hell was more important anyways. Sometimes it may be this kind of period of like emptiness, or sometimes it may be like you actually get a new frame and you see. So basically this changing of the frame from it was all itch before to disappears, and now I'm in a frame of either, I'm supposed to be pursuing my purpose or whatever the hell they call it, or what was that all about anyways? In other words, just pure emptiness. This is the post-nut clarity process, right? And we're going back into the fog because we're like, rather than talk about post-nut clarity so much, let's go into that fog. And we looked at the fog. You talked about the itch. We talked about the frame. And we can see the complex of feelings in the body and images in the head that this has, that goes along with it, right? So the question is, how can I observe that itch frame? How can Bernard observe that itch frame, bring enough awareness to it such that it does not take up 90% of the screen? How do you look at the itch such that you can see how you're doing a quadruple timeout over there?
Oh yeah, I had to. Yeah, somebody. So if I never saw you before, don't know who you are, and the first thing come out your mouth is an insult to me, yeah, you get quadruple timed out.
Yep. So basically, it's like, well, how do you, your back itches. How do you, without me putting a gun to your head, how do you focus on like, okay, there's an itch. It feels like this, and the nerves in my body are pushing me to do that. That whole separation of you from the itch. Ask, are you the itch? So I'm asking you now, the you part. Okay. Now it's all you. Okay, if you wanted, right? But we're taking, this part of the machine to say, okay, look at what's going on at this other part here. Okay. enough that it does not completely take off the frame. So basically what we're going to get to, and we'll hop back and forth from just looking at the fog to talking about practical things. So far we've been looking at the fog doing our phenomenology. I haven't mentioned one practical thing yet. I just mentioned that awareness is the opposite of this kind of fog, right? It makes sense. There's no need to talk about which tool or how do I bring about awareness, but it's like, well, you got a fog, you got a darkness, you got to throw some light on it. And we're beginning to see, using this frame idea, how, if I do look at that itch, it does kind of get smaller in terms of the frame, though. Not that the itch goes away, but would you agree that if you're able to pause, like Bernard, pause, look at the itch, study it, where is it, how does it, like, you know what I mean? It starts to get smaller in the frame, and the part that observes it starts to get bigger. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I can see that, but to some degree, stop and look at the itch. I don't know if that's the right verbiage because it's focusing on the thing that's the problem. You see, if the itch is the problem and you focus on it, wouldn't that make you want to scratch it even more?
As a matter of fact, no. And yes.
It's
what I mean.
It's normally something else. There was a movie, I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Major Pain with Damon Wayans.
Broke his finger.
Yeah, okay, I see. Okay, so you know the deal. For those that don't know, I think it started out, I think he was at war. Somebody had a little gunshot wound to the leg, if I'm not mistaken. And he was like, I know a little trick to make you not worry about that gun, to make you forget about that gunshot wound. He took his hand and broke his finger, and then, see, you're not thinking about that gunshot wound no more.
Exactly. The frame changes, right? This whole frame thing. And that's kind of how we are. So you're right. And maybe what I'm describing is at the top of the mountain, the peak. The peak is you look at the thing to dissolve the thing, right? Because really all that, what's underlies, whether you break your finger or you look at the thing, what underlies it is attention. In other words, you can take your attention and you can put it somewhere else, either by volition or you break your finger by yourself, so you force yourself there, or I put a gun into your head so that the itch leaves the frame, or you practice your attention in and of itself on the thing. Because once you look at the thing, okay, you create that separation where you're like, okay, just because there is a sensation in my lower back called this itch doesn't mean that I should do anything. In other words, it takes a lot more to master me than that. You cannot get in that position of being able to make that choice of what masters you or not if you don't look at it, right? You cannot even be in that, because blindly, unconsciously, you just go scratch the itch. But if you stop and look at it, you can at least be in a position to be like, stand mano y mano, if you will, with that itch, right?
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. And you know, I've actually done that with an itch before. I told myself, this was a while ago, I was like, nope, I'm not going to scratch it. I'm going to see how long I can hold out without scratching this itch. And the funny thing about it is it will go away. Now, when it comes to pre-nut, post-nut clarity, I've been told that if you just stand in it, the horniness will go away. I've been told if you just you can wait it out and do something else and it will go away.
That is also, you know what, time is a miraculous thing. And because of these frames we talked about, they also change with time. It's not just like, oh, your body just stays in this frame until you get X. You're not, no, it's like you move on. You're like, you know what, screw that, I'm gonna go watch it. You know what I mean? It finds there are other frames or other things, or you get a phone call and your mom needs whatever it may be. The frames will change, right? The things that are driving you, the passions, the desires, the instincts. So, however, though, the idea still is this. I'm going to mention one practical thing now, because all we've said so far, okay, just to kind of make sure that we're keeping it clear, post-nut clarity suggests a pre-nut fog, right? The fog end is where we're going in to look at, because we want to see how this fog controls us. What is the nature of this fog? What's the nature of this curtain? Who put it there? What does it look like? Is it enough of a child? How can I, in other words, consciousness, when you bring it to bear, I mean, it's the first step in any kind of problem solving, right? So we go in there, we look at it, and we're like, oh, it's kind of like an itch. Yes, it is. It does manifest itself It's feelings in the body, right? And then it's image in the head. And then we understood the whole frame thing. And then we're saying that the way to challenge it is by awareness, but that's not practical yet. That's practical for certain kinds of people who can then go and forge their awareness tools. But one thing I would just say right now is fasting. Let's start there.
Uh-oh.
You need a dopamine fast. You need a fast from anything at all that can play the desire role in that framing, okay? So that you can break through the cycle of unconsciousness, which tends to come from time to time. When it's almost like if you keep on pushing that button, swiping right, eating that donut, whatever it is that gives you the kick that you keep on just, the more you do it, the more likely you are to do it in the future. There's something called the Lindy effect, which says that the longer a technology has lasted, the longer it's likely to last. It's kind of like a crazy backwards thing. It's like if something is 200 years old, then it's more likely to be around 500 years from now than if it was only 5 years old. The longer things are, the longer you can project they'll be. Like chairs, for example. It's like chairs have just been around forever. They're not going anywhere. You can kind of just, you don't see chairs going anywhere. Even like in all the futuristic Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever, they're still sitting on chairs.
Yeah, you know what? They actually try to reinvent it. But, like they'll do a chair without legs and have it float or something. But not that's a chair. He's sitting down. The humans need to sit. That's just clear. And there's no better way to achieve that than sitting in a chair.
Exactly. So when things have been time tested, but the reason I brought up that analogy is to say that the more you fall for something, the more you fall for a temptation, the more likely you are to fall the next time. What fasting does is it breaks the cycle. And if we go back to that whole Christianity thing, the thing about the Christianity is it shows you, right? Because it says, hey, you think you're righteous, you think you follow the rules. Let me show you why you're not. He would not sin cast the first stone. If you think about it, you already did it. It's not supposed to then make you, the thing about it's kind of high level. In other words, that you got to kind of walk through the alleys here. It doesn't just tell you, So it doesn't mean you should then go and be like, oh, I'm horrible. It's like you should then find peace, okay, with the fact that you are quote unquote a sinner, as they say, and then you'll be able to actually negotiate out of there. In other words, I'm saying, look, you are going to be hostage to the dopamine, the likes or the hearts on your Instagram picture, the swiping right, the itches, the this, the that. Fine. But in time, you can break the patterns, okay? You'll fall again, but you can break the patterns. And now, fasting is the way you break the pattern. Take yourself away from this thing, which is controlling you, which is, this particular itch thing, and it loses its power, right? Just first and foremost, right? I mean, does the fasting aspect, when I just bring fasting out of left field, does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, but you're talking to a non-faster, even though, like I said before, a lot of people know that I've talked about how my weight has fluctuated up and down. I've, used to be in really good shape, and then I got, I've never been bigger than what I am right now. So I'm not saying that I was just some bloated fat dude, but I've gained weight and I've lost weight. So in my process of losing weight, I did what I didn't even know it was a name for it, but intermediate fasting. But far as fasting, I believe, as you're talking about, no, I've never done that. And so fasting is almost a foreign language to me, and I've been talking to a lot of people about it, and a lot of people have been sending me good information on it. So I'm looking into it. But as far as okay, this will sound like a silly question. Give me your idea of a good fast. If somebody's okay, tell me how you fast. What does it look like for you? Let me just hear that.
Okay, good. But I'll say that right now. The statement, though, that when you relinquish something, you let go by force, for a certain period of time, force yourself to let go of something, you necessarily reduce its power over you, right? Okay. Fasting for me, it's like, okay, I know the feeling in my body after I think I've been eating too much or eating too much of the wrong kind of thing. if I'm getting cravings for carbohydrate, for example, because I decided to slip a little bit and have some fries or just a little bit of something like that, and those microbes in there start craving the stuff and trying to pull me down, at some point I'm going to decide, okay, for the next 36 hours, just water, coffee. Okay, water and coffee. I put some creamer, because heavy cream, because it's fat, and I'm trying to move towards keto. I'm trying to move towards burning fat rather than carbohydrates. So for me, I'll just be like, next 36 hours, water and coffee. And it works because I can keep that caffeine boost, right? I have some fat in me, so it's not like I'm starving at all, really. Then what tends to happen is this. You're going to find out that thing you call hunger, or for example, that itch, because when you look at that itch, you're going to realize it's not just one big thing that covers your whole frame, itch. It has parts, okay? There's a part you may find that feels like a numbness. There's a part that feels like some kind of a vibrating thing that needs to be like a blockage that needs to be cleared. There is a part that is in your head that says, that tells you the words probably in your head that you're saying like, whatever it is. And the images are probably associated with itch, right? So there are different parts to it. So basically now, this thing you call hunger, when you decide that for the next 36 hours, you're going to be drinking water, taking only coffee with some heavy cream, you're going to see that hunger has aspects that have nothing to do with your desire for calories. You just want something warm in your mouth, for example, Bernard.
No. Pause.
100%. We know that it is to actually eat stuff. So you're going to find out the aspect of that and how big it is, because you're like, I don't need calories right now, but I want to do that whole routine. Yeah. So it's like you have to force yourself through that. The first time, the harder in terms of each fast. Then by hour number 30 in your 36-hour fast, that thing is just going to look like the wind passing by. In other words, it's going to look like any other natural phenomenon. What's that thing I'm talking about? I'm talking about that thing that says, oh, you must eat, you must eat. You're just going to look at it like, oh, like a bird flying by. It's like that set of, oh, it's this feeling and this, that, and the other. It's not going to fill up the frame anymore. It's going to be a tiny little pixel in the corner of the frame. That's how fasting helps you to bring light to the fog, right? Because all these little dopaminergic cycles you're on, push this button, eat this donut, do this thing that gives you frame, desire, pursue, catch, your satisfaction, next desire, pursue, catch. You have to break that cycle, okay? And you have to recruit the unconscious. You have to recruit habits. I've taken the next step now. I'm talking about fasting, and I'm going into habits. You have to build habits, but the first way to start to build those habits is through this break called fasting. Because I just tell you, oh, well, why don't you just have better habits, Bernard? like,
okay,
how do I do that?
I get exactly where you're going and everything with the fasting. That made perfect sense. You'll get to the point once you get deep into it where the little urge from within is just like wind blowing by. It's like it's just normal. Nothing you need to even react to. You're just sitting on the porch, wind blowing by, nothing you need to react to. Okay. The $1 million question is, how do we get there when we're talking about that need to bust a nut? So clearly, like, we're talking about fighting. Well, I guess in some ways we're not. I was going to say we're talking about fighting two different animals, but now that I think about it, yes, that need, because it's hard to conceptualize as somebody who's never, did a 36-hour fast. Well, I kind of did before, but I kind of had to because I was on some. That was different, but It's a different animal, but in many ways it's not, because if you're talking about going 36 hours without eating, the urge to want to eat is going to be stronger than your urge to want to have sex. So if you can overcome that urge to want to eat, you obviously can overcome that urge to get one off. And then there's the aspect of and this is how most guys deal with it, I think. Masturbation gives you they get that instant post-nut clarity out of the system. But yeah. I like what you said there. I like what you said there and how you explained that as far as the fasting aspect of it. And if you could pull that off, you should be able to pull off the other thing. Okay, Omega Drag said I went a year with a year no sex. Was it a year not busting a nut? Those are two different things. Two different things. I can do a year no sex. I can't do a year not busting a nut.
I think what you bring up though is quite important in the sense that yes, we can talk about one scenario when we seem to be using the food. The food thing comes to mind more because I think we got food in the brain generally more than we have sex because food is more easily accessible.
That is a good point. That is a good point. We would have to think about food more than sex. You would think. Yeah. You would think.
The thing that is though, but you're saying, okay, but how about this other thing? So the two things that come up. The number one thing is you got to remember that whether it's food, sex, or that itch in your back, okay, your body and the way it tells you stuff is still your body and the way it tells you stuff. In other words, if this thing always puts up a red signal, or in other words, if your body always feels a certain way and then there's a certain kind of a voice in your head telling you to do stuff, it doesn't matter what it's telling you to do, whether it's hunger or bust a nut or whatever. I'm saying master the watching your particular machine because it has these bells and whistles, right? So, and it only has so many bells to play. It's not like these passions are very different. It's like, how could it be? It's like you are an organism, not some kind of infinite loop of many different kind of whatever. It's like, no, the car only has a few ways of telling you something's going wrong, right? Same thing, your body only has a few ways of driving you in terms of passions and so on and so forth. So whether it only has a combination of possible sensations. You don't have infinite number of sensations. You know what I mean? It's like, no, all these things feel similar. Whether it's I gotta go bust a nut, or I gotta go have a drink, or I gotta go eat this food, or I gotta go watch Game of Thrones, or gotta distract myself with something, or I gotta take this pill, whatever it may be, they're very similar in terms of how the body manifests itself, because how could it be any different? How many bodies do you have? So that's the one thing I would say that needs to be remembered. But we can talk about the specifics, right? Like, okay, yes, this one is a little bit of this shade. So let's talk about the specific shades of the fog of the pre-nut fog, if you will, right? So it tends to be stronger than in terms of like sharpness and immediacy than the others. Hunger can kind of be just a dull thing, and maybe you can kind of ignore it, push it aside with just sip some water or something like that, chew some gum. I don't know what it is, right? But even if you're not bringing a lot of awareness to it, but hunger you can kind of put away. If we imagine the sharpest, the deepest pre-nut fog, it's not like that. It's a lot stronger, right? And it's also located in a different part of your body. You're feeling this stuff down in your loins over there. It's not in your chest. It's not in your stomach. It's more down there. And then images, it's a very hyper, especially for men, it's a hyper visual thing. So that little wind that's passing by that we just call the wind is going to be that. This is your challenge now. Okay. Your challenge is strong feelings down there, images up here. Okay. But the thing is, no matter what, a fast is what you need. You need to step away from it in order for it to cool down. That's the only system, because if I just told you have better habits right now, you want to see it like the wind right now, you're not going to see it like the wind right now unless you go through this formal practice of detaching from stuff. There's a reason why all cultures, or most cultures anyways, have a fasting ritual. Religions, that is, of all kinds, they talk about fasting. It's not a mystery. This is why they say it. There's something about, hey, I need to break out of the frame of just because otherwise we're a hamster on a wheel, chasing next desire, next frame, next thing, next dopamine hit. We're that rat pushing that cocaine button. Okay, that's what frame is. It's like cocaine frame. This is on a cocaine frame now. Okay, yeah. So at some point you got to step away from the cocaine frame. It's the law of how the body works. You can't recreate the universe just because I don't like that I have to spend. That's how the body works. You can't just flip a switch. You gotta step away, do some fasting away from all whatever it may be, right? But it's all pushing the same button in your head. And then with that, over time, you can begin to build the awareness. So the first practical thing we've said again is still fasting. Okay, but we're fasting so that we can be aware, and then so that we can build habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I definitely love the way you put that. The closest thing I could say as far as the fasting aspect of it, I did get to a point sort of like what Omega Dreads talked about. Well, no, I don't think it was Omega Dreads. It was somebody else who said, I think it might have been Bowdy Thug, that said he eats once per day, or he does a natural intermediate fast. And that was how when I needed to lose weight, that was how I lost it. Sometimes it would be twice a day, but just one meal per day that was relatively speaking in the middle of the day. Let's just say if it was at 2 o'clock, I'll eat and I'll get nice and full at 2 o'clock. And if you're going to bed at a normal time, you eat at 2 o'clock, you're probably not going to get hungry again until around 8 or 9, close to bedtime. No need to eat. No need to eat. Just go to sleep. Just go to sleep. Go to bed hungry. You wake up, it's a new day. Have some coffee. Coffee normally knocks out the appetite. Get into your day. Do what you do. Have a little more coffee because coffee can knock out your appetite and extend you out and make you last to about 2 o'clock again. Have another meal, and it's like just like that. You realize, wow, I went 24 hours without eating. Now, in my experience, at least my thought process, I'll go crazy if I try to tack another 12 on there. In my mind, at least that's where I'm at. I've never tried it, but I do know, and I can relate to everything you're saying, how it does just turn into like a breeze blowing by when you're hungry, when you've ordered yourself and you know that this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to react to it. This is how I'm going to respond to it. And so you're basically saying that whole process, it needs to extrapolate that out forward to the other aspects of your life, more in particular sex, and not just sex, because nothing wrong with some good sex. I think the whole post-nut clarity thing, it comes in when we're talking about you had sex with somebody you probably shouldn't have had sex with. You're going places you probably shouldn't go. You're doing things that you with people you probably ought not be doing it with, and you understand immediately afterwards that I need to leave this, and I got to leave this one alone. And then if you haven't formally ordered yourself like that, you're going to end up going back to that dirty well, so to speak. Going back to drink at the dirty well instead of disciplining yourself. Like, no, I can wait.
Yeah, we like to have or think we have free will. We like to have control and we like to have awareness. So it's not about the particular passion or drive or desire that's driving us. It's about when we get in that situation, when we think the free will was absolute, and because there's such a stark difference, right, between pre-nut and post-nut, that we see, oh my God, where was my free will? Where was my control? Where was my awareness? That's off-putting to us, right?
Right.
So now, not to get too meta with it, but the reason why I also said, you are the itch, plus you also can separate yourself from the itch, is there really is no free will at the end of the day. But we that thing that we see where it's like, oh, I didn't have any will at all. It's almost like this particular side of myself did not get to participate. It's almost like what we're saying. It's like this side of myself, the CEO side, the central processing unit, the side that should watch, did not even participate in that at all. Like this whole thing, it was the inmates were running the asylum there. The warden. The warden was absolutely absent the last 24 hours while I was out there.
You're supposed to be the warden, and you just checked out. You just fell asleep behind the wheel. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I'm gonna bring some people up for questions. Sincere Cracking Up wanted to get in and get a piece of this, but shout out to Utopia, who just sent a $10 cash app. And sorry, Utopia, when I get a $10 cash app or super chat, I gotta play it. We're wait for it. Wait for it.
What do we get for $10? Everything you want. Everything? Everything.
All right. Sorry, Utopia. I had to play it. But we got Sincere Cracking Up in the building. Go ahead. You have the floor. You have the mic.
Good morning, y'all. How y'all doing today? Huge supporter of the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're doing well.
And good thing you're saying, sir. You make up good points, man. It's about lifestyle and balance. You're hitting it on the nail, man. That's why I listen to y'all. You got the conversation right. You know what I'm saying? And one thing about it is you can do all these things in life, but you gotta have balance. You have to be able to map it out, Bernard. That's what it is. That's the key to life. And that's why I always chime in with you, because you guys know what you're talking, man. You're speaking truth, man. I listen. I apply it to my life every day, man. Honestly.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
That is good. I mean, the balance thing happens, or is vis-a-vis this particular topic, right? We've hit on balance a number of times. One of the main ones is, and that's why it's so pertinent to the topic about extending post-nut clarity, is that you have to look at these cycles through time in terms of like, you're gonna fall off the wagon or on the wagon or wherever it means, okay? And it's fine, right? And then you simply just reset. Now, fasting is like a will reset. But I'm gonna add another thing here, and let me see what you think about it.
I'm open, man. I love conversation, man.
Yeah. So you have this unconscious, let's say there are drives pursuing you and so on and so forth. And we need to use our unconscious as well, which is habits. Okay. You need to build habits in order to fight these things. This is my other point, Bernard, right? First of all, I was talking about fasting in order to give you a clarity, in order to take a step out, to break the cycle, to break the frame. Now, you have this unconscious part of yourself, okay, right? Which we're saying, we don't like it when it takes over. We don't feel like we have free will or control and so on and so forth. But there are many unconscious parts of ourselves which we don't mind, right? Like we don't mind that we don't have to think when we drive. We don't mind all the good habits, right?
Yeah.
So we can recruit that side of ourselves, right? Just thinking about it that way. Like it's almost like left shoulder, right shoulder, devil, whatever. Like, okay, there is this routinization, being able to be automatic, right? Automation aspect of ourselves. We call it habit, but it takes some time. So after you fast and you're able to have that kind of clarity, now you can have a habit, one of which is, for example, when you have that urge, a particular urge, go do 10 push-ups first before you do anything. It's not saying don't go to Tinder or don't go to whatever.com or don't handle it. I'm not saying that. It says just have this routine where you go do 10 push-ups. It does a couple of things for you. Number one, it gives you time. And then number two, the push-ups will awaken your body. Mm-hmm. And when you awaken your body, you can then practice that awareness we were talking about. But basically, before we go through the steps, basically we're talking about habits and the fact that this is an unconscious automatic side of ourselves, but that we can ally to in other words, we can build good habits in order to fight the bad habits, right?
Yes, I agree. I agree. I agree.
100%. What is your thoughts on? Because I did a show on no fap before, and I'm no fan of it. I do say better out than in, to quote Shrek.
I'm not a fan of it.
What's your thoughts on no fap? Because I mean it's related. It's related. We're talking about post-nut clarity, making better decisions, and I talked about the jacking off. That's the cheat code. Just how to, if you I remember my brother, he actually said, because he used to spend a lot of time at the strip club, and he didn't even go in there and buy lap dances. I mean, my brother, he was a ladies' man. He just liked to hang out at the strip club. All the strippers knew him. Our sister was a bartender at the strip club, so my brother used to just get his table, and his table was just like the cool table where when all the strippers would have their little downtime, they'd just come hang out at his table, just drinking with them and just having a good time, just partying with them, you know. And it was part of his little his shtick too as well, because you know my sister was like the main bartender there, and so you know I think him and my sister, this was when they were younger, they were kind of like roommating, so you know they would go back to a lot of the strippers would reconvene at their house afterwards, and so my brother, so even though going there wasn't that big of a deal to him because he was always in that environment. But even then, he said that, you know what? I got to stop just hanging out at the strip club every night. Even because you know, I mean, and he made, you know, he had decent money. You know, he was living a fast life, to just put it mildly. But still, just being there, just buying drinks for everybody and just partying. He was like, I need to chill. So he said, you know what? I'm just about to just get one off real quick. And then after he get one off, I'm not about to go to that loud ass pissy place with all that shit. It's like he would instantly understand that I don't need to go to this strip club. And he was like, and then he'll realize I just saved $100. So that's my pushback against.
So I am.
Go ahead.
I'm the same way with most things. What I'm about to describe is just the way I deal with most things. In other words, asking, well, fab, no fab, it's like asking, well, do you prefer gear 1 or gear 5 or gear 3? You know what I mean? In terms of I'm sure you drive stick, you look like that kind of guy. So asking someone, I think gear 1 is better. So basically what I'm saying is this: you use it for the situation. This guy needed to not go to the strip club and he used a tool, right? Now I would say that's like the low level tool that he was able to reach out to in the bottom shelf, but you need to learn higher level tools, right? That's a crutch, in other words, right? The crutch can also then become a problem. All these things can be, you can go from gear 1 to gear 5, right? There are better ways, but however, there are better ways to drive than not drive. But the idea, and that's why that whole time thing comes into play, and I think that's a big point of Christianity, is that Christianity says, let's not just look at one instance. Oh, you did this. It's like, let's look at through time. Okay, you're sinning, so change your attitude about sinning and other people and so on and so forth. And you'll probably find out you sin less when you stop looking at other people's. Take the log out of your eye rather than look at the speck. That's how Christianity is, all this kind of mind game stuff, right? But point is this: you can use these things as tools. This, me personally. Not everybody is that way, though. When I say not everybody's that way, I mean this is a psychological category type thing. Some people like to just look at everything as okay, I can use it this way, I can use it this way, I can flip it this way, I can do that. I can go on gear 1, I can go on gear 5. I can use it as a defense, I can use crutches, but I can know that it's a crutch for the time being and then move on. Other people like more strict rules. So if you're a strict rule type person, then go ahead for the no fool, no fap, by all means, 100%. If you're the kind of person who just builds, like, okay, I'm trying to get to the mountaintop, I know where it is, I know it's by using awareness rather than crutches, right? But I look at all tools that's available to me.
Yeah, I like how you put that. I like how you put that there.
And shout out to she also Utopia sent me she's out here balling with the cash apps. She sent me a $10 cash app as well.
What do we get for $10? Everything you want. Everything? Everything.
Thank you, Utopia, for sending 2 $10 cash apps. You made me play it twice. Thank you for that.
Is it cool if I say something now?
Yeah, go ahead. You got it.
The sir in the black hat. That's why I called in, because I actually listened to Bernard and applied it to my life. So that's why I would want your perspective on how you would take me as a person. Like, what would be your thoughts? You know what I'm saying?
Well, you as a person, my thoughts.
Yes, because you speak real good word, and I really appreciate what you say, because I actually listen and apply it. Like, that's the truth, man.
What do you like doing, sir, besides listening to Bernard? What takes up your time?
You know what? It might not be like the typical thing, but I like to work, man. My enjoyment is actually going to work every day and giving back to people.
Oh, going to work every day. What do you do? Do you enjoy just working, or you enjoy specifically what you do?
No, it's not about me actually enjoying the working. It's me being around people. That's my favorite aspect about it.
I see. So You're kind of externally motivated. You like to be around people.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Would you consider yourself to be a leader, a natural leader? Do people want to follow you? You find yourself, you find people coming to you and saying, "Hey, let's go ask him what he thinks about things."
It's for me, it's a little different. Like, I'm the type of person that I have to watch, and then I can become the leader. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah, I see. Yeah. So when you ask a broad question like my thoughts about you in general, it's more about curiosity. I'm just curious as to what exactly do you get out of Bernard's channel? Now that you've given me the background, okay, you're kind of a social person. You like to solve problems for people. Now, what exactly do you get out of Bernard's channel that you apply to your life?
Motivation.
Motivation. You're a motivational speaker, Bernard?
Apparently, I've just been told. No,
No. I'm not saying he's a motivational
no,
speaker. I'm just saying that it gives you drive and to just do better from what he's speaking.
Hmm. So is it something about what he says, or just something about Bernard, or something about the arrangement of the show, or is it about the social space? You're like, oh, that's like a nice warm fire over there with people having a good
No,
time, decent
no.
people. What is it?
No, I look at it like from the reality of what's really going in the world from what he's saying, and then apply it to my life. See, I
Gotcha.
let you two guys break it down into a way that I can really understand what's going on in the world as whole.
Gotcha. So overall, I mean, you seem to have your head on straight. Okay. And the ability to be able to learn from other people's articulations, if you will, and perhaps their mistakes from their life experience is a huge part of things. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 34.
Okay, if you don't mind me asking. Yeah, it's a big thing. It's being able to learn, move on, be aware, similar to this whole, and I'm gonna tie it in again to this post nut clarity thing. Where we were at was the habits, right? So, but another thing that I will have to go back to is to say the fasting leads to you, or that whole awareness aspect leads to you being able to see how the fog arises. Because one thing about whether it be the pre-nut fog or any kind of frame forming fog, series of drives, passions, and these crimes of passion that we commit, and we don't want to commit so many crimes of passion. One of the aspects of it is it catches up on you. It sneaks up on you. It immediately is there. You didn't see it come up. You're like,
I agree.
all of a
I
sudden,
agree.
you know what I mean?
I agree. Yep, I agree with that.
So a key thing about this is to be able to see it slowly creep up. Now, this is the aspect of the, shall we say, no fap, that the other side of the tool. Because I just mentioned, you talked about this guy didn't want to go to strip club. He used the crutch that he had. Now, the other side of it is, how about fasting in that regard, right? What it allows you to see if you closely watch, because you're going to have to be watching it for a while. You're going to have to be watching it for a while. Is you're going to see the nature of the thing. And by definition, it's going to be able to be small in your awareness. You're going to be able to take it apart. You're going to see all the different manifestations of what this quote unquote, as we said before, feeling in your loins and images in your head are about. You're going to see the subtle ways in which it gets you to do what it wants you to do, right?
The details.
And with this awareness, it's tough to, it's like Bernard asked me last time. It was like, I forget what the question was, but my answer was one thing that I do, and it's similar to me saying do push-ups before you. In other words, he was like, how do I put off the eating thing, right? Same thing with this one. I always have something I do. Remember Bernard last time I told you that it's going to take an hour to hydrate and this, that, and the other. And in this case, I'm like, go do 10 push-ups first. In other words, there's always something I do in order to awaken the body so I can see what's going on, right? Now, I always give myself the out. I always say, I may still end up doing this thing which I don't want to do. Okay. But
yes, sir.
The chances that I do it is dropped down by 80% if I follow these steps first. If I go start hydrating first, shout out to Utopia for sponsoring the water. if I go hydrate first, and I know it takes a certain amount of time, and I do this, that, and the other, it's less likely that I just then go start eating. If I go do these push-ups first, and I start feeling this thing in my body, and I'm consciously knowing that the purpose of this push-up is to try to watch and avoid this thing, it is less likely that I do it. I still leave myself the out that I might do it. That's just like, you're practicing your free throws. You're going to miss some, right? And I think that's absolutely key, because people get into this other funk of, I'm a bad person, I'm a weak person, and therefore I don't deserve anything. And what I mean, I don't deserve to get better, right? It's like an excuse to stay bad. It's an excuse to stay a low performer because you're a loser. That kind of thing, right? I'm just a loser anyway. It never works. It's like, that's an excuse. Basically saying, look, you're going to fall, okay? I fell so I can't get up. That's BS. Get your ass up, okay? We all fall out here. Whenever we talk about poster, I mean, like, do you have a yellow sign already? A yellow dollar sign?
A what?
Do you have a yellow dollar sign on this video already? In terms of like,
I think so. I think we're free to hold on. Well, let me double check. I think the thumbnail and the title would automatically get it either way, but I'm about to formally check right now, so you know if you can go ahead and say what need to. Yep, it was already yellow. I think it started out yellow. So go ahead.
You're a bitch ass nigga if you think that you're just gonna be like, oh, because I fell. It's like, no, everyone is out here falling. Everyone here is out here going through the cycles. Everyone is out here having to break certain patterns. Okay, everyone here is out here, having to go out on, let's say, a vacation. You fall out of focus. You fall out of your diet. You need to reorder your life. Whatever it may be. It's about that falling and getting up. Some people get into that whole, I fail, I never. It's like, that's why I always say, you leave yourself an out. You use the tool at hand, but you got to go from crutches to better ways of standing up by yourself, that kind of thing. But generally speaking, I don't know what anyone else wanted to add up to that, but basically we started out with this fasting thing. We go into the habits thing, use the good habits to fight the bad habits. But also within this habit forming thing is to be able to see quite clearly how the fog arises, right? And when you can see how the fog arises, it is less likely to cause you to do anything, even if you know that you might still do something.
Right on. Nick Penn in the building with the $20 super chat. I appreciate that. Appreciate you coming through with the $20.
I want 150,000. So we can start out of court right now for $20.
Man, get your
shout out to Nick Penn. Appreciate it. All right. The link is in the chat. Anybody else can come up and add to this conversation or ask. Ike, you got another question?
No, he hit the nail on the head. Like, it's the balance, and that's what you have to do with life. You have to have a balance. You have to apply it every single day. It's like with life, if you want to be a professional basketball player, you have to apply it every single day. And that's the thing that I get from you, Bernard. You always had that one thing you and him always talked about was balance. And I like that aspect of life. I really do. The balance.
Right on. All right. Ike, in your handy notes, because I don't know if I opened it up a little too soon. Did you have anything else that you had jotted down that you wanted to go over as far as the the aspect of extending the post nut clarity?
So the thing to notice here, okay, is that the more you resist, the more likely you are to resist. The more you succumb, the more likely you are to succumb, right? We need to understand that there's this momentum that builds, okay? I've said it before. It's like when something is around, it's more likely to stay around longer. When the last 2 times you fell for the itch and you scratched the itch, last 2 times you had the donut, last 2 times you went to the OnlyFans page, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. It's more likely that the 3rd time you're going to do it again. So how do you break the cycle? Fine. First of all, stop being a bitch ass nigga and start talking about, oh, well, I'm in a rut, I'm in a funk. It's like, it happens to everybody, okay? Mm-hmm. So break the cycle. You need to break that dopaminergic cycle that's going on, that's framing you this way, so that you can get awareness. And basically, you have the fog on one side, you have awareness on the other side, okay? And then on the other side, you have passions.
Mm-hmm.
So you have fog, one thing, kind of unconsciousness, not clear, no will, no control. And then you also have passions, right? That's the problem side of the ledger. On the fog side, we say bring consciousness. We understand how that works. On the passion side, we're saying use habits, because they're both blind, they're both unconscious. One can help us in terms of good habits, and we form these good habits through the fasting. That's how all these things get tied together. But ultimately, it's about watching yourself. That's all we've been talking about, right? That's why we started with the whole phenomenological aspect. We say we're going to look at this thing. And if you notice, all we've been doing is just taking a closer and closer and closer look, right?
Mm-hmm. Right on. Good stuff. What do you say to the guy that he's just out there? Look, I'm living my life. I'm just smashing these chicks. I don't care. This is all, you know, pointless. Even trying to, there go that that need a pop. That's what I gotta do. I gotta write that down. I gotta go and get a go to Guitar Center and see about getting a pop filter for this thing to get rid of the noise when I say anything to start with a P. Okay. What do you say to the guy who just like, look, I understand what you're saying, but I really don't care. I'm out here. I'm smashing. I'm smashing grab out here on these women. It ain't even no need to be even concerned about, you know, post nut clarity, pre nut, post nut, all the same. I'm on attack mode. Is what it is. Don't care. I mean, that's a different subject, But I'm just trying to think what the guy is thinking. That's like, nah, forget all that. I'm on the attack 24/7. Don't care. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think much about it, or I don't have anything to say to this person, because I understand where they're at. And the thing about it is, if they're intelligent to know that this to be controlled by passions is the problem, and that, hey, if they're just picking their little sin, right, then that's fine. In other words, there are two types of people that could say what you said, right? One is just a scared little child, right? Like, I'm gonna do whatever. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. Damn it! Well, you know, like the Cartman.
Yeah.
Whatever,
I don't care.
I do what I want.
I do what I want.
Exactly. That's the one attitude. Just, I'm too cool for school. Blah blah. We get that person. It's like, that person, whatever. I'll be annoyed that they were allowed to come into my presence, or that I heard what they had to say. Anyways, I don't give a damn about those kinds of people. They're a waste of time in general. But there's another type of person who could say this, and that's the person who knows that they're disciplined. In other words, right? They're disciplined in other parts of their life. They know that it takes discipline. This may be somebody who works out 5 days a week, good with the diet and so on and so forth. They're like, for this area though, okay, this is my one thing. Okay. Leave me with this. And for me, that's fine too. Because really the idea here is there is a fog caused by unconscious drive, passion, and so on and so forth, right? This state where we don't have control or will, it's caused by all kinds of things. Maybe caused by what your mom told you, or what your wife told you, or it may be caused by hunger, lust, other kinds of desires. And that overcoming that fog, or being able to navigate within that fog, is key. Somebody, as long as you know that, that's fine. Then you can pick your own little citadel, your own little castle, your own little, dungeon of whatever, dungeon of pleasures, to
Right.
go and be like, this is mine. I know, but I keep, because I believe in keeping, to the degree to which you're going to have vices, keep them constrained within a narrow band. Because what tends to happen is this: let's say this guy is out here, let's say the Wolf of Wall Street, for example.
Mm-hmm.
He's just out there and he's cutting corners with penny stocks or whatever, which I'm sure many other people were doing. Like, of course they were. He was the poster child.
Yeah.
Sacrificial lamb. So you could be doing that, okay? But the problem is, what tends to happen is you're going to start doing that, and then you're also now going to start cheating on your wife with 10 hookers, doing blow in. The more you expand the breadth of your vices, the less likely there's something that's going to come and everything is going to come crashing down, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you're doing that, don't also be cheating on your taxes and doing illegal drugs. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
you stay in a simple, narrow lane if you're going to be doing dirty. Okay, that's the sermon today.
Yeah, when it comes to stuff like that, like I'm a law-abiding citizen. I live a good life. So the things that I like, food and sex are like major. Those are my major needs. I don't have any. I don't have any other drug. I mean, there's drinks behind me, but you know, I like to have a nice little wet bar. But I don't just sit there and I can go a long time at a without drinking. That's no issue. I don't smoke. I don't have vices. The only thing is food and sex. That's really truly the only thing that would even fall into anything that categorically would be a vice. And I've struggled with the food. I mean, I'm currently struggling with the food thing because I said right now I weigh more than I've ever weighed. And you want to know what was funny? When I was single and out there with my collar popped chasing them, you know, I was able to deal with the food thing, you know, because it
was a bigger frame.
Yeah, I was out there on the hunt for that thing, and I was able to, you know, look at that. And because let me make it very clear, I worked anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day and made money and took care of taking care of myself wasn't an issue. I'm just talking about in the vice department. When I was out there chasing, I was able to turn away the food more and work out more, but would get in my car and drive an hour and 45 minutes to go see some chick I just matched with on Tinder. You know, but now that I'm not doing that no more in a stable relationship, and so I got order in my life as far as sex goes. I got order in my life as far as that right now.
And now you have
discipline and now the food has taken over. And that's how I told you. I think I told you, I don't even want to say the exact number, but I gained a lot of weight. I gained the weight that I say I'm way more now than I ever did. I gained this weight in the relationship because when I established order in my life and somewhere else, it turned into disorder somewhere else. But when the other thing, the sex, was the thing that was, you know, a little out of order. And keep in mind, the guy who's single, who's out there getting it in, I'm not saying that you're just out of order. There's nothing wrong with that. I've lived that life. I actually love having locker room talk about that life. That's something that we do on this show. It's fun. But when I had a certain amount of disorder in my life in terms of that, yes, the other thing, the other vice, I was able to maintain that. It's difficult to have both of those maintained for me. That's my little thing I'm fighting with. But I like what Nu just said. Hold on, I'm gonna read this super chat. And I want to read what Nu just said, because Nu just said something interesting. And I used to believe that. I used to believe what he said right there. So we're gonna get to that. But Sunjata. Thank you for telling me how to pronounce that. Sunjata. All right, I'm probably still doing it wrong. Is that okay, we're going with Sunjata. Sunjata. I don't know if it's Jutta or Jata. You got it. I don't know. I got it closer to right. Sunjata. He said it's pronounced Sunjata. Crutches are important. They have a purpose. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Now, Nu said something very good. And for a while, I would have been 100% in agreement with him. And I almost don't disagree that much when he says,
I almost want to be like, hey, Nu, come up. Because you know why? This is one of those really, not exaggerating, questions that has been discussed for 2,500 years, right? It's like you could go from reading Plato's Republic over 2,500 years ago till some article written yesterday about what's the nature of the good and the bad, right? Is it really bad? Is there a bad? Is it really... That's the thing. However, what Nu says is true. It's just a matter of frame, right? To say you don't really believe in vices, fine. But then I'll put you, or you live in a frame where there are vices. You know what I mean? In other words, whatever Nu values, right? Whatever he's pursuing forms the goal around that frame. That's what his actions are directed towards, right? And there are better ways of getting there than not. There are worse ways of getting there than not, right? So you will find that even if you say, I don't believe in vices, you're going to be living in a frame. And that frame has better ways of getting to the ends, less better ways of getting to the ends, things that will be total disasters with regards to the ends. But you may say there are no ultimate ends. In other words, I choose the frame, right? And so far, I will not even argue with you up till that point, right? I'll have to switch the conversation out to something else because this is about objective morality versus no objective morality. And I will say, well, morality has to do with people. I think we talked about this last time. Say morality has to do with living things. We don't talk about morality. In other words, you already come into a frame, right? When you're talking morality, you already come into a frame that has standards, parameters, and so on and so forth. I don't know. Does that make sense, Bernard, what I'm saying?
Yes, I like how you said that. You spoke about objective morals versus the subjective. That's the part that jumped out to me. Whether or not it's whether or not I need more order in my life because I'm swiping on Tinder until my fingers bleed, and then a match with a chick who happens to be 2.5 hours away, who's who ain't even all that good looking, but hey, it's a vagina available. I'm getting in my car driving 2 hours for it. Whether or not that's something that a man should or should not be doing, that's completely subjective. Who can say that that's wrong?
Yeah. But the whole thing is, no matter what, there is a frame that you are living in that says, this thing here does not work for my frame. You know what I mean? It does not work for attaining my goals. It does not work for attaining my values. Then New might say, but there is no ultimate frame, right? It's just your frame, my frame, this frame, that frame. And then I would say, fine, let's go to the beginning and let's understand that when we say values or morality, we're talking about life. We're not talking about whether the sun is good or evil, right? Bad sun. No, it's human beings or life that we care about. And then immediately you get into a frame, right? You're sucked in from anything, everything to now life, right? That's a much narrower frame than anything goes because life has parameters, it has boundaries, it has purportedly certain objective definitions, right? Such that anti-life, you could say, is not pro-life. In other words, what I'm saying is you can't start from an objective basis to build a moral structure, but you have to start with the axiom of life, and that starts to build the frame for you. So, however, that's a different conversation, but good point there, New.
Yeah, definitely like what he brought to the table. We got Game Changer in the building. I don't know how long you've been listening or anything, whatever particular part of this conversation that you want to jump in on, go ahead and jump in on it. You got the floor, you got the mic.
Yeah, so basically it's about vices. The way I see it is we have good and bad ones, but we all have them. So if your vices just so happens to be reading and working out, then these are of course going to work into your favor for the rest of your life. And I think that there are a lot of bad vices that just aren't labeled as such because they're so common, such as television. That is definitely a vice that most Americans, particularly Black Americans, have. But it's so common amongst us that we don't really consider them vices. We just consider it just like a lifestyle. But yeah, it is a vice. And, it could be possible that what you described, Bernard, in a future generation will also become a lifestyle. And that is not television, but Tinder. And, just basically this hookup culture and things like that, spending a lot of time for a little bit of sex is definitely a vice that hinders men and not necessarily women because, you drive the 2.5 hours to see her and she's not actually doing it. So, she's not expending the same amount of time as the man in order to get her sexual needs fulfilled. And
she was reading a book for 2 hours while I was on the way. See, so she enriched herself in that sense. Yeah, exactly.
Or worked out. So
exactly. Yeah.
And that adds up when it comes to, if you look at it as competition on a socioeconomic level, if women say, we're outpacing men or something like that, it's like, well, that's not necessarily, there's truth in that in the sense that, A person that moves from 0 to 5 is, outpacing somebody who moves from 5 to 9, but you're still beneath me. Never forget that. Now, but what's going on now as far as the competition for, once again, socioeconomic status, is that a lot of the men's time and energy is going towards the women and not the other way around. So they are able to appear more productive.
Good stuff. I like that. I like the way you put that there. Go ahead. Were you about to say something, Ike?
No, I was
Okay,
just
all right.
Go ahead.
What's your overall thoughts on the subject? I don't know if you heard what we were saying earlier, and if you didn't, that's good because you could probably give us your fresh take on it. What's your thoughts on the concept of extending post-nut clarity? What's your overall thoughts on that? How to extend post-nut clarity, or just what's your thoughts on that, Tony, on the topic?
Actually, I never thought about that, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Personally, I just enjoy it while it lasts and then do it again. If I can, there is recovery time that's involved, but yeah, I just enjoy it while I can and do it again. That could be considered a vice and, lack of impulse control, but anything that's too abundant to you and too easily to get. And I'm not saying that it's abundant to me, but if it's a well, masturbation is abundant to everyone too. But I mean, if it's available for the first time, there's no reason why it wouldn't be available for the second time. So yeah, I'll just do it again.
So do you lack impulse control in other aspects of your life?
Yeah,
I would. Yeah. Yes, you said.
Yes, I do.
So when you say lack, you mean you have that struggle, or you have that struggle and you mitigate it, or it's just unmitigated chaos over there?
Okay, it's difficult to say. I live with very few vices because I avoid them initially, such as drinking and smoking and things like that. I think that on some level, I'm aware that these things would be very addictive to me. So, which is why I never tried them. However, when I did struggle in university with video games a lot. Of course, I struggled, in K through 12, but it really had an impact on my adult life during university. And it wasn't good. I spent too many hours playing games, and my grades were affected. I also worked. My job was affected. I lost track of time. I would play all night and look up and see that it was time to go to school or work, and I would go unprepared completely. I just having enough time to wash up and brush my teeth and just run out the house, barely making it on time. So so yeah, that was a vice that I struggled with. And
how did you tackle that one? I'm sorry, go ahead, Bruno.
Well, no, I want to circle back to something that he said before when it came to sex or post-nut clarity, and he says, yeah, I just do it. I may need some downtime, but just go again, then again, and again, and again. I'm shocked by that answer, because when it comes to these conversations about sex, you speak as somebody who has more discipline than most. You said you're willing to go, I'm paraphrasing you probably horribly, but you're willing to go 6 months without it if you don't find a good suitor. Like a lot of guys will swipe right on Tinder, get in that car like I did, and go drive to get some strange. You on the other hand, if that woman is 20 pounds overweight, no. If the only, like, you could be way past the post-nut clarity and ready to go again, but we'll say give a hard no to a woman over, she's 10, 15 pounds over the body mass index. Like, so that takes some order and discipline. So when it comes to having good clarity, I think you do better than most. But you talk kind of hedonistic when you explained when you gave your answer.
Maybe I didn't understand the question because, okay, when you say post nut, it's somebody that you when you just have sex with someone. And yeah, I do maintain a standard with the women that I have sex with. And once that standard is met, then, you know, why not do it again?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
I see why you didn't understand the question, and probably a lot of the order that you have is probably why you didn't understand the question, because you won't have you don't have that experience of having sex with somebody and thinking, damn, what the fuck was I thinking? You don't have that feeling as much, I take it.
oh, I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not for physical reasons, but definitely for personality reasons, you know, or you know, just the circumstances under which I did it. Definitely.
Yeah. That's more so what we were talking about. But yeah, you don't have that problem for a physical reason. I think a lot of people can relate to that too. Coming from yeah, personality and circumstances in which you did it. I think a lot of people can relate to that one. But okay, now I got
for example, I once had sex with a woman, you know, with ankle bracelet on. She had it on while I was doing it. And,
you mean like he was on tether?
Huh? Yeah. Well, she was on house arrest.
Oh, okay. When you said ankle bracelet, I was just thinking one of those little cutesy ankle bracelets that they wear. But no, you mean she was on house arrest. Okay, cool. Gotcha.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, because I don't know if they do this in every state, house arrest means that you're actually in prison, but your prison is your home. So they put a device around your ankle so you can't leave your home during certain hours. So, you know, whatever was going on in her life, it wasn't good. And I didn't care, and I slept with her anyway. And it turns out that, and this is the really nasty part. She breast milked me. So during foreplay, I was, you know, kissing on her breast, and there was milk in there, and it was disgusting, and I felt violated, and it's ultra sweet. Like, I think at that point, that was the worst day of my life. So, I mean, and if y'all ever had that happen to you, it's hard, because this is somebody else's fluids inside you. It's disgusting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got kids, and I was, you know, I was married, and so I've tasted breast milk. Yeah, so
I don't have any kids. I'm not married with kids.
Never. Yeah, but I understand.
But you do feel a certain type of way. You feel afterwards. You feel, you know, so stuff like that happens. You know, like
it like squirted on you, like she.
No, it didn't squirt, but she didn't tell me that it was there.
It went in your mouth. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it went in my mouth. Yeah, so yeah, and
she didn't tell you when she was about to.
Residual.
What'd you say?
I said I spit it out, but it was still residual. Yeah. Like that on top of the ankle bracelet, just everything was wrong with this. Everything was wrong with this.
I'm just imagining, you know, on top with the, you know, both legs in the air. I mean, just seeing that ankle bracelet in the air, just rocking back and forth. Seeing the tether, whatever. Yeah, that had to be a weird feeling.
Yeah. So I mean, though I don't really compromise on certain looks and, you know, initial behaviors, you know, most guys may compromise. I know guys who don't. Who, you know, only mess with, you know, attractive college grads that were in sororities type dudes. That's not me.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, that was funny. That was funny. Got skeeted on with the breast milk and had the house arrest ankle bracelet in the air. That's funny.
Game changer. Seems like for a long time you've known that you had a certain personality and known to avoid certain things so that you don't get into trouble. Would you say that's the main form that your program of order takes? Because you're like, okay, you know, you have impulse control issues. Obviously, you're mitigating it, you're controlling it. Otherwise, it'll be ridiculous chaos. You mentioned the game one, and you can use that as a specific example of how you were able to kind of handle that. Because ultimately, what we were talking about here is you have passions and drives that lead you into a fog, unconsciousnness. You feel like you don't have control, right? And then here comes the nut, and then you're like, you're clear now, so on and so forth. And that is a state that we would rather be in. We would rather be clear. We'd rather feel like we have control. We'd rather feel like we have some agency, some free will, so on and so forth. So is, to repeat the question, your system mainly avoidance and also anything else? And how did you handle the video game one?
Absolutely. My system is avoidance, and that's because I know these things. There's certain things that, you know, I couldn't avoid, like video games, because, you know, nobody ever say, like, everyone tells you that drugs, alcohol, cigarettes are bad. You get the public service announcements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No one ever told me about video games. And so it's not really necessarily that I'm strong. It's just that, you know, like, I know that I assume weakness in myself. As opposed to, like, do I have the strength that some people have? And I do give it to them. Some people have, you know, who go to Narcotics Anonymous, who goes to, you know, Alcohol Anonymous, you know, people who have the strength to break that. You know, I give them credit because I don't necessarily know if I have that strength. Now, as far as the video games go, it was difficult. Fortunately, I didn't have any money. So destroying the system worked, and not being able to afford another. At this time, it was the Xbox. It was the first Xbox. So, like, okay, I'm gonna just get rid of this, and then I can't. You know.
You see, Bernard, breaking the cycle, right? Fasting. You cannot avoid it, right? The way to go about changing the frame. You know, there's this frame whereby video games is the biggest thing. It pulls you. You wake up, it's about video games. You plan your day around video games, whatever it may be. And you need to break and fast and then mourn that whole thing happening. And then you start building new habits. But yeah, I 100% agree. And it's 100% in line with what we were saying. Basically, we said that fasting in order and then using good habits to fight bad habits is the way to really deal with this passion-driven fog, if you will.
Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Snuggles back in the building with the super chat says, so is this called I didn't even read it. It was sitting there for a while. I didn't even read it. But so is this called Milkagate now? What do you think this will be called, Game Changer? Because, you know, you just let the cat out the bag. I don't think so. I mean, this is just funny, but I don't think it'll be a big thing. But but shout out to Snuggles. Game Changer, you can give your thoughts on that super chat if you want to, but no, I don't think it'll be a big deal. I think something like that is damn near par for the cause around here. I mean,
yeah, pretty much. I hope that, because I had enough gates on my name, so, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to
you never know.
Shout out to Snuggles, who I confirmed today is not a man. I think she's black-ish, but it's not a man. I thought you were a man all this time, and shame on you for not telling me. Shame letting me believe you were a man all this time when I've been talking to you. That was just wrong. That was wrong. Anyway, it was withholding of information. But
I think what we have to what's important is identifying bad vices versus good.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, there was a time that reading certain things was considered bad vices. Novel reading was considered bad vices. And by novels, I mean storybooks, not books that you know, instructional or just, you know, philosophy or just life enrichment. So these were considered vices. Since we have a society of it that. Since we have a society of so many vices, believe it or not, most every American is high on something, whether it's coffee, whether it's a digital entertainment of some sort. Right now, for me, I guess it would be YouTube. I do spend more time on it than I should. So in both listening and producing content, it's difficult to identify them. They're not all illegal. They're not all going to leave you strung out on the street, but, you know, many of them will interfere with your productivity, as YouTube have, and I'll admit that.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say that reading used to be a vice. I remember when watching the Titanic, which took place, I think 1920s or 30s, something like that. When the girl, the main character woman in the movie Rose, when she was kind of, you know, getting out of line with her husband, he just passively said, "Huh, I gotta start minding what she reads." And looking at that right now, that's something that nobody ever says. Nobody ever, if somebody is reading, it's just like, oh shit, you're reading, good. You know, we don't even think like that nowadays. It's minding what you watch, or minding what you're looking at on your phone, or minding this. But reading, it don't matter what you're reading. If you're reading today, it's good. You're doing better than all the other shit that's put in front of us. You know, so that's just an interesting thing how you even brought up that, you know, reading used to be a vice, which it was, but you just, you know, you can just look at older movies and just how they talked about certain things. But that's what popped in my head when he said, I gotta mind what she reads.
Well, exactly. I mean, in older instance, you would hear parents complain that their son reads comic books all day, and you know, now, you know, somebody would say, "Oh, my son reads all day." Like
my son became a reader based off comic books. I couldn't. He didn't want to read nothing, but he started liking his comic books and his anime with the subtitles, and that was how he got his reading in. And then it just, you know, extended into a little bit more reading after that. But short of comic books and subtitles and anime, he wasn't reading shit. But not on his own, put it like that.
Yeah, just
not on his own.
Assigned projects. No, I get you. Yeah.
But now he will get his hands on something and actually read it. Okay,
it's not a challenge. It's just a if you add another dimension on top of the whole vices question, and that certain vices such as reading, certain things should be vices such as reading. Okay, so vices, I think, you know, the way I like to think about it is you have virtue, right? Because that's the opposite of vice. So if I can understand virtue has to do with how you obtain a value, which is a goal. You have to set a goal, and then there are things that move you towards that goal. Those are virtues. Things that stray you away or move you away from that goal, those are vices. Now, it does make sense if there is a goal, and the more backwards, let's say, in terms of society, the more we move time back, the more things were more unified. Just generally speaking, postmodern Western liberal democracy tends to disaggregate things, generally speaking, right? And then you go back to a more cohesive society. If there was a more cohesive society and there was a goal, a cohesive goal, they would have certain things that would say, well, these are the virtues that lead us there. And certain things such as reading, right? Game changer, could end up messing everything up for you, because we talk in this space about a lot of the effects of a lot of things that people wrote and then read and are being inculcated in colleges and so on and so forth, right? Now, I'm just trying to nuance the whole position here, but hopefully you see what I'm saying, right?
No, definitely. I see what you're saying. You know, but the collective goal part. So I think that's a thing that people lack, especially someone like myself that's not necessarily single but unmarried and childless. Like, you know, things like that, I'm sure would take away from a man's or it would give a man a collective goal, because, you know, you're building a community, you're building a society for the sake of your kids. People don't know this, but what I do is I mentor other kids. And in the realm of math and science. So that gives me a goal and things like that. So, and I can imagine, you know, because like my father having created a Boy Scout troop for me when I was younger, you know, but a lot of Black men absent family really find, like, what do you do to create a collective goal? Like, do you become the cleanup man just so you can have something to do that's productive and not destructive? Like, you know, what's the goal of a man that's childless?
You want to take that one? You want to?
Well, I think he's talking about his mic.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, the whole collective goal thing, because this series of conversations with Bernard started out with, you know, first I came in, I was like, well, men are expecting too much from women, goldfish riding the bicycle, whole thing. We had some fun. And then we continued to move on to, well, how do we fix Western society in a postmodernist context and so on and so forth. And this whole thing about constructing a story, right, a narrative whereby there are goals, right, was the main one. Now, we in that particular set of conversations kind of just established that this is what needs to be done, right? The biggest problem, I think, besides the simple practical problems of how do you bring people under a collective umbrella and then start to move them towards a goal? What is the critical mass of people? How do you do that? And we laid out certain programs. We talked about in certain organizations. Yeah, we. However, there is a philosophical problem, which is that in modern day times, due to, you could call it, because of the technological system, because of the economics, whatever perspective you want to look at this particular Rubik's Cube from, fact is, the Rubik's Cube is one that moves ever towards more and more disaggregation, towards more and more individualism, if you will, right? And that they, oh, well, let's try to collectivize and let's do this sort of like that problem. In other words, the problem with the mind, in other words, when Nietzsche said long ago, God is dead, the God is dead problem is the main one. Because if God is still alive, you can really you can just throw people under that umbrella, right? And say this is God and this is what God wants. But how do you think, you say you're doing certain things, you're mentoring people, so on and so forth. Do you think that writ large, society-wide, that these kinds of things in terms of collective narrative, collective goals, doing for the others, can go beyond maybe just you and your family?
Yeah, but I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing, because whenever a resource is free, it's unappreciated. That's what I understand. Now, of course, cherry picking the children that you mentor is one thing, but just if this was done en masse, then what winds up happening is it goes unappreciated, and really it becomes a demand and just a base requirement of the people who should be providing these resources to their own children. And they often become dependent on the circumstances that led them to that. So, for example, this is an example I got from watching TV, which, you know, is one of my lingering vices that I'm working on. But so apparently when the British colonized India, they had a problem with snakes. There was an infestation of snakes in some of the cities and the communities that they were building and colonizing. So what the British did was they offered the locals a pound in exchange for a snake head, you know, confirmation that the snake was dead, thinking that this would allow the citizens to, for one, it's a form of quantitative easing, and for two, this will make the citizens kill all the snakes. Eventually, they'll kill all the snakes, right? And what they found was more snakes. And this was because people began to breed snakes and then chop their heads off and sell it to the British. So they did try to eliminate the problem of snakes, but they wound up with more of them. Now, if you were to take a look at the Black community, giving an impoverished woman the opportunity to educate her kids for free and sustain herself as she does so with food, shelter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That seems to be a direct solution to poverty. However, what happened was, and what they didn't realize was that you were paying people to be poor. And this system caused, as we all know, at least here in the States, it caused more poverty.
Sorry to cut you off, but the solution, in other words, when I know I probably triggered you when I mentioned the whole individualism part, and then you may think that I'm going with more of a collectivist approach. Yes, I am, but not on that economic level, and also not coming from this impersonal government giving you money. None of that.
Okay.
It's more of a up from a grassroots building up again of community is what I mean. In other words, one of the effects of postmodernists, whether thought, technology, economics, whatever, again, the situation that we're in right now is such that it tends to disaggregate communities, right? And it's not just a specifically, African-American community thing. Communities tend to go away, and then also families get smaller and smaller. It's just the way of what we call Western liberal democracy, blah, 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 right? So what is the hope? Not 100%. I don't like that impersonal giving of, and this is not even about resources. It's about quote unquote community, right? Those things that bring us together, the reason we went down this whole thing is about that collective goal, collective vision, collective story, collective narrative, collective religion, whatever it may be, from a grassroots level, growing up. What are the chances of that happening? Because it is one of the things that will save us, quote unquote. But or is it all going to hell in the handbasket?
No. It's a little bit of both. So Black Americans are in a unique position because what I've discovered is that large cities is where family structures come to die. So basically, if a group of people like yourself, and this isn't foreshadowing something horrible on you, however, immigrate to a metropolitan area, what I've noticed amongst immigrants here and Black Americans is that within 3 generations, you start to see it deteriorate. They'll come here and, for the first generation, they'll have 6 children. The next generation, they'll have 2. And the third generation, they may be lucky to kick 1 out, and that won't be in a marriage. It's very difficult to maintain a family structure in large metropolitan cities. And Black people moved here in droves. When I say here, I'm talking about places like the Bay Area, but there's also Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, Detroit. You name a major city, and there's a Black stigma. We are known as inner city people for a reason. That's where families come to die. It's very difficult for families to grow in such an environment just for social reasons. So it's I think that it will require a significant cultural change. I think that right now we're in a stage of struggle that's necessary before progress. Mm-hmm. As far as our family structures go.
Yeah, I think that's a good addition to our. What do you think, Bernard, in terms of our conversation? I think that we did not consider that urban aspect, right? Which is perhaps part of the plan is to go resettle some of those crazy ideas we had in the institution, so on and so forth, to focus on places where there are chances for this to grow, right? Water got disappeared from the East Coast. Maybe we need to start in places where there is more fertile soil in the rural areas, so on and so forth. Because this urban aspect, I did not even think, because I know urban tends to go more with cosmopolitan and also liberal, to use that word loosely, and that, yes, that is where the families go to die, and that's where community tends to die. That is when you then turn to people to do things for you in terms of the impersonal hand of government or certain institutions and so on and so forth. That's why cities tend to be more liberal. It's not a question of we see that, right? Red versus blue, where you get a high concentration of people, all of a sudden you start to see a preference writ large for certain kinds of policies. Exactly. And literally because of how they live, right?
Exactly. I've come to realize that city life is not, and that's why other communities, they live in the suburbs, and they thrive on that. And, if you look at like Latin American communities in particular, or even Asian communities, more specifically Oriental communities, they get an influx of cultural immigration. So they're able to sustain, but there's a steady flow of, others coming in. So even if their family is deteriorating within 3 generations, we wouldn't know it because another family is coming in to replace that. That's not necessarily true for African Americans. An African, like yourself and my girl or whatnot, will come and maintain their cultural identity that's distinct from ours. So we're not getting an influx. We're just getting, an opportunity to merge with the cultures, with new cultures, if we choose to do so. And most of us don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, one factor in that equation, you said something that it made me think and realize, and this speaks to what Ike is talking about, or moving away from this or going here where it's I don't know, more fertile ground or more opportunity for what we're talking about to exist. One thing I point out a lot in these conversations, there are quietly a lot of different pockets of upper middle class or close to upper middle class, full-blown upper middle class Black communities or neighborhoods just sprinkled out all over. So it turns into a situation that those that do fall into what we would consider the problem, those that make it out of it, yeah, they either leave and they get sprinkled into upper middle class white communities, but there are places where black people have more or less coalesced together and are doing a lot of what we're talking about doing, because there's a lot of conversation in this space kind of talk about you know, separating, like almost like a separate black society or whatever. You know, we do get into talking about that, but it actually happens organically by class already.
Yeah,
If you understand what I'm saying.
Exactly. And also right quick, Mike, also the anti-urbanization that you know I was just speaking about is happening naturally. Like, I mean, like you being here in the Bay Area, you may have noticed that a lot of blacks are moving back to the South, you know. Now, oh, by the way, y'all can have, okay, a lot of our fat bitches are moving back to the South to find men that tolerate them. Be my guest. And then they say stuff on the way out like, "Oh, I'm gonna get me a Southern man that appreciate all this."
Real man.
Freaking guess. Go ahead. But then there's people who also move for cheap housing and or for cheaper housing, I should say, and just like a slower pace. Yeah.
I was just gonna add to that. You know, you're saying yes, this de-urbanization is taking place. People are moving, and for other reasons too. And I think this Corona plus the fact that things can be done more remotely and many things were forced into remote mode, that will continue this kind of a trend. The thing that you mentioned about the neighborhoods, Bernard, the pushback to that is these people are just occupying space. That's not the problem. The problem is not, oh, we don't have enough places where black people occupy space. That's not a community. Community is not just where people occupy space, right? It's like, well, where is the, in other words, you might say, and I would agree, I would say there is a Nigerian community in the United States, but there are no Nigerian neighborhoods. In other words, neighborhoods just occupying space is a different thing from a community. A community is more about that shared story, which links people together. It also allows for a certain kind of lubricant, a trust. In other words, you should be able to, if you guys know the secret handshake, be like, okay, I can do business with him. You know what I mean? Then over distances or so on and so forth, you do business with these fellow people that you share a culture with, because you guys know the secret handshake. You know, whatever, I can trust this guy. He knows this, that, and the other. I can trust. And for immigrant communities, a lot of times it's the case that because immigrant communities have special ways of doing things, not just because it's culturally different, but because of their immigration status, right? In other words, 100%, all immigrant communities know this. Okay, I'm not letting any kind of secrets out there. There's a lot of under the table type things. A lot of like, okay, let's not, the paperwork for this particular thing is not all up to snuff, blah, 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 blah. So you're like, so you want to keep it within that community, not just because you're just simply being nepotistic. You're like, well, I'm not sure if this other person here, Game Changer, knows how we operate, right? But, oh, that Nigerian, I haven't heard the accent. He'll know, I don't have to tell him anything. He'll know how, we operate. So that is what I mean by a community, Bernard, not neighborhoods people are living together.
Okay, so would you say the upper middle class black neighborhood that happened naturally and organically just based off class, where people just got to a certain status and they wanted to move somewhere where it was a nice house, and quite naturally they'd rather have black neighbors than white neighbors? So you would say that's a neighborhood, not a community?
Yes, I would say that, right? That a neighborhood, it's not necessarily a community, right? That part I think is clear enough, just and logical enough. And that this community things are on this whole sharing of a story, sharing of ideals, knowing certain things that you can just expect. Like, what are the 3 things that we know about each other and we know that we will carry through, besides the fact that, let's say if you take the ADOS thing, besides, oh, well, the white man held me back, right? Maybe we can all kind of like, hey,
I was just about to go there. I guarantee in those upper middle class black communities where black families are there, I guarantee a black man see another black man, and I guarantee it's like a de facto secret. Yeah, we both made it out of the nigga shit. we escaped niggerdom to get, and now we here together, living good. That's
a negative kind of thing. It's not positive. That's the difference. That's what we were kind of emphasizing in our series of conversations, which is that you can't just be saying, this is what I'm not, this is what I'm going away from, I'm being misrepresented. It's like, well, what are you positively? What do you put out there? What is your story? What are you about then?
Yeah, we don't have a positive identity that describes what we're about and who we are as a people. Everything is anti to or pushing back against something that happened to us. You see, so and that's, yeah, our identity is all skewed and screwed up. And shout out E. Capone, by the way, shout out to that Exterminate the Brutes, excellent documentary. And see that right there, that's an example of it. That Exterminate the Brutes is a documentary that speaks to what happened to us, something that they are trying to do to us.
This is a very bad thing. Remember, we talked about mental health, and then we talked about the fact that mental diet is very important. And also we talked about certain things that are they're not even part, you should not even be part of your diet. They're pathogens. Okay. So these movies, okay, books, so on and so forth, that kind of lead you all into this collective warm blanket of victim worship, right? I'm just going to go out there because this has nothing to do with whether you're slavery or is this or whatever. You can even look at it in your personal life, right? You wallowing in your misery. Okay, so we take away the politics, take away the sting out of it. I don't care which kind of misery you're wallowing in and which kind of movies or books you're writing about it, which groups you're going to and raising fists in the air about it. It's all a mental disease. It'll keep you deeper into that mental disease. You need to get the F out of it. It actually, in fact, does not get shit done in the real world. Okay, in the real world, you have to move away from that story BS into more of a, what can I actually do? It has to be action-based, action. And looking at the world as a place for action, not just a story land where I'm going to go watch another movie again about what happened to me and why my story is already predetermined.
Shout out to E. Capone. Thank you for that super chat, by the way.
I definitely go for it.
Oh, no. I don't know. It's like I heard like an extra background noise or a double to the I got 5 on it. But I don't know. Maybe one of your speakers picked it up. So I don't know. But either way, go ahead, Game Changer. You was about to say something.
Oh yeah. So the reason that for what Ike mentioned, that's one of the reasons why certain novel reading can be considered a vice, because it does take you out of reality. Like a drug, just not to the extent of it. However, it gives you a very specific reality. And, if you find a collection of people who are constantly in victim mode, it's probably because of the type of entertainment that they read or watch. We are dramatic people. It's like, Black History Month, is focused primarily on the trauma, and so does Women's History Month and whatever. It's like Women's History Month should be, celebrating all the women that have gotten their men sandwiches in the past and in the present. A celebration of George Washington's wife, Colorado Scott King wife, all of the great sandwich getting women of the past. But no, they bring up all this crap, so yeah, it does put a person in a victim mode, and which means that they have something to point all of their failures to, and they are more comfortable failing. So yeah, it definitely, and a person should not feel comfortable failing. And also what it's doing, and I noticed this amongst Black Americans, is that there's a pushback when somebody takes you out of victim mode. And they don't necessarily have to do it deliberately. They just shatter your victim narrative. For example, it's okay for an athlete to become wealthy because he's exceptional physically, and in some cases mentally and things like that. So that's okay. It's okay for an entertainer of any type to do so, because these are, considered offshoots. It's not really okay in the Black community for an academic to do it, because that highlights your failures. A person who grew up in your hood, take Ben Carson, for example, a person who grew up in poverty with a single mother, suffering from the same systemic racism that another person may complain about. This person really highlights your failures. It makes you look back and say, gee, I should have got better grades, in high school or something like that, and there's a pushback against that. That's why there's maybe a part of modern Black culture, unfortunately, has become anti-intellectualism, because it highlights the failures of those who don't get it that way.
Mm-hmm. Ike, are you here? You dropped down, disappeared. Just checking to see if you're still in the building. I give him a minute. But yeah, okay, there you go. Okay. Yeah, he is back. He is back. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff on that. One of the biggest things, well, I mean, I push back against a lot of things, but the victim narrative with Black people, that's something that will always be a flashpoint that I will come back to. I will always come back to that one. A lot of our thought process comes from that. Just to go back to what E. Capone posted, and I think he super chatted about that documentary a couple of times. And I'm going to watch it, but when I watch stuff like that, it's just more so like I enjoy history. I like to look at it, learn about it, just from purely an academic standpoint. If I'm watching a documentary about slavery, okay, it is a little closer to home because those are, people that those are our people. So I get it. But at the same time, if I also watch a documentary about the Revolutionary War, I'm literally watching it with the same, I'm just learning about history. I'm not watching it. I don't watch it from the perspective. It's like we watch stuff like that from the perspective of we need answers for today. Why, A, B, and C is not going right today. So we have to look at this documentary and look at this movie and see, yep, and look at that, and yep, they're still doing that to us today, and that's still going on today, and so yeah, it's our whole media, the movies, the stuff that we watch, the stuff that we produce, the stuff that we make, even if white people didn't even put their hands on it, the stuff that we produce and put out for entertainment to us are things that pin us down to the story of being victims. And if and it was the truth, then yeah, our people took a major L. Yes, we understand that. Mm-hmm. We understand that. Took a major L, but it's like we haven't moved on from, okay, that happened. This is who we are going forward.
The actual accounts. And this is because it comes from the perspective of slaves who have become obviously free and literate. So there's always a positive end. Like this is tragedy to triumph thing. And that's just because of the nature of it. If there's a book out, then they must have learned how to write and were free to do so. And, 12 Years a Slave, autobiography of Frederick Douglass, who was a vice presidential candidate, and he went to Harvard and things like that. So yeah, he started off as a slave, and there was even a portion, I think they stole this in the movie because this wasn't in the book 12 Years a Slave, where he did whip his own master's ass. Frederick Douglass talks about that in his autobiography. So I kind of get stuff like that from it, and how we have
but hold on, Black people don't even when we make slave movies, we don't even make movies including that type of stuff in there.
Yeah. I mean, our fiction, which roots, even though his family heritage may be somewhat accurate, it's still not. It's all the details were made up. Like the cutting of the foot and all that is pretty much made. We don't really know the details in the day to day, and the whole Kizzy aspect of it. Did she spit in a drink? Like we don't know that. So that was made up, and yeah, that's kind of left out because it wasn't written from the slave. So the novels that I get, that we get that are written from the slave's point of view, like what is it? Hold on. I got my library right here. Let me see. I think it's called Diary of a Slave Girl or something like that. Here it is. Incidents in the life of a slave girl. She talks about her father and how he was a skilled slave. And he told her, and this is interesting, and I like to read stuff like this, so check it out by Harriet Jacobs if y'all haven't already. I know King Sigma has. She talks about how her father said to her directly, if I call you and master calls you at the same time, you come to me. Straight up told her that, so like I like reading stuff like that. And these are the true incidents. I don't know why they like to promote this victim narrative. And I think it's just like with the snakes in India. The more victim narrative you present out there, the more society gives resources to try to balance the scale. And they have been doing that, for quite some time. Like, yes, we're still victim. Like, okay, here's stuff to balance the scale for your victimhood. And as long as society continues to do that, they're always going to perpetuate this victim narrative. That's why when I first came on the scene, I was so against this whole reparation thing. I'm like, listen, first of all, it's not going to repair it, and you're going to ask for some more next generation. You're going to keep, you're going to keep pushing this victim narrative just to get more free crap. And a lot of that.
Are you referring, or are you referencing when Phil Advise, who has a million sub channel, backed you into a corner with the reparations debate and said, "Are you black? Are you black?
Oh yeah.
Are you even black?" And then you said, "I'm blacker than your wife." That was the funniest moment in all of Black YouTube that year. Man, you want to talk about a drop? Just completely dropped my phone, just curled up in a fetal position, laughing, because that was like when it had just leaked out that Phil of Advise, Mr. Pro Blackity Black, we black y'all. That's when it leaked out that his wife wasn't black, and you sniper shot him so hard. That was the longest dead silence ever. Because everybody was coming at you hard. It's like when you said that, everybody just sat back in their chair and oh my goodness, man, that was funny, man. That was funny.
I remember that. Yeah. The push, because remember, I was a very new YouTuber, and the pushback I was getting was, from these people that want to profit from victimhood, so they'll continue to sell and perpetuate victimhood, over and over and over again, and they kind of champion it, and part of it is because they get free resources, another part is because the attention they get, and you hear those people within 5 minutes of knowing them, like, are from the ghetto, like they champion that, a lot. And yeah, we do have to get over that.
Shout out. Did I say his wife was white? I think somebody's correcting me saying his wife is Mexican. I don't even know if I said her race, but no,
I just said I'm blacker than your wife.
I didn't know if I said that she was white, but I didn't know if he was just setting the record straight or correcting me. But thank you for the information, RT the brand. Thank you. I didn't know if I said it wrong. But Ike, you've been taking notes, so I know you got something important to say when Ike start taking notes. Go ahead.
No, I mean, the mental disorder aspect of this, I don't think should be overlooked, right? Because it has come up in 3 separate conversations. There's the conversation that kind of came up tangentially that led to this whole watching slavery movies, watching victimhood movies, wallowing in your own particular, whatever your misery is, wallowing in your misery. In there, we see the idea of some kind of idea pathogen, some kind of something that you're almost like awed by, like my precious, or like even like, oh, you're possessed by evil spirit type, whatever you want to call it. All that craziness is going on in that victim narrative thing. It's also going on with this whole post-nut clarity thing, in the sense that there is a frame thing there that, as we mentioned before, when you were talking about, well, what is the pre-nut fog? It is like an itch, Bernard said, right? It's like you gotta scratch the itch. Everything becomes the itch. So what it's like you picture a frame where it's just 90% itch and then the border, right? It's like the itch is your world. Your body feels itch. Your mind tells you scratch itch. Your nerves are automatically you're pushing your hand to go scratch itch. So that is a frame. This other thing about victimhood and so on and so forth is also a frame. In our conversation about mental health, we said that the frame not matching reality is the main cause of the mental disorder. In other words, I say it's a reality malfunction, right? If you remember, it's like this whole thing about what you take in and what it can do for you in there. I think, especially in the modern world, we tend not to take it seriously, or we don't take it as seriously as it was done when people used to call it spirits. You know what I mean? It's like if it were a spirit, right? If it was, if you took it that seriously, you wouldn't mess with certain things, right? You're like, nope, that's an evil spirit. Can't watch that movie, right? But these days, we've put some words around it that make it seem like we have more of a grasp on the thing. But no, the thing has as much of a grasp of us as if we imagined it were a spirit, because it doesn't matter what you imagine it as, we'll call it language and precision. Anyways, that aspect I think is 100% key. This whole victimhood is another kind of drug that gets put out there. It makes us unhealthy in objective ways, right? The whole unhappiness, the Zoloft and Paxil and Xanax and wine, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff is a real manifestation. The dying early, the chronic stress is a real manifestation. And all these things are kind of interlinked. So I was just drawing a little circle around all those aspects there, just reiterating things. Nothing new per se.
Number 16 in the building with $20 super chat. Thanks for the $20.
I want 150,000. So we can settle out of court right now for $20.
Man, get your...
All right. He said something good here. He said other groups can remember trauma and teach their own about it, which is used to tie them together. ADOS are shamed and not allowed to do that. We can educate our people and promote good practices and morals at the same time. I agree that that's how it should be, but I'm acknowledging that that's not how it is. Other groups, for example, the Jewish people, they talk about the Holocaust. They remember the Holocaust. Yes, it's a part of their history. But you've never heard them say that it's holding them down, or it's holding them back, or it's preventing them from doing this, or it's preventing them from doing that. They've moved forward. They're not like tires stuck in mud, hitting the gas, spinning in place, and then the tires spinning in place, and they can't go nowhere from it. That's where we go wrong with it. If we were doing what you were saying right there at the bottom, we can educate our people and promote good practices and morals at the same time. If that was happening, then I would. This conversation would be irrelevant. It would be completely 100% irrelevant for us to talk about it. But we seem to only come together in a fight against the evolving scale of racism, or we seem to only be motivated when it comes to stuff like that. Our whole identity is defined off not just what happened to us,
Bernard,
but what's currently happening to us.
Yeah, because I think that you said it correctly. If it were happening, there would be no conversation. But also, just to take all the venom out of it, we said quite precisely that what we're talking about is a positive image that is lacking, right? Because there's always that resistance. In other words, so if, in addition to the fact that, let's say, a certain kind of people, let's call them juice people, tend to celebrate.
I don't know the exact rules on that. Well, I think you can say Jewish people without it.
Okay. Jewish people.
I think
if they pay attention to various things, atrocities on the Holocaust and other atrocities that are venerated or celebrated by certain festivals, right? That is 100% true. What we're talking about is that other 90% of stuff, which, where they're God's chosen people and there was Abraham and he killed it, and then all that stuff is what we need, right? And by we talk about any particular group now that is trying, that us as human beings as a group, not each individual per se, need that positive aspect. And then also, yes, you can do the wallowing a little bit to tie you together. However, any individual is also well advised to stay away from wallowing in their misery, regardless. So it's like there are three things going on here. No matter what's going on, as an individual, there is that little thing over there. It's called sugar. Stay away from it. It can control you. It doesn't mean it's completely bad, but you can wallow in your misery too much. Plus, the other thing that's going on is saying that, look, there's a positive aspect that needs to be emphasized. And that number three, these movies, as a matter of fact, are artifacts, are not the best way of doing what you may be saying, which is, promoting the use, or shall we say, using that whole something happened to us in the past. These movies are not the best way of doing that, right? So even if that's what you wanted that part, it's not the best way. They tend to tug at heartstrings and be all about you wallowing in your misery, in my opinion.
All right. Shout out to number 16. He did come back through with another one. I do appreciate your support and your perspective. He goes on to say, people from other groups tell me Ados is complaining about our past, but will give me an hour-long lecture about what their people have suffered. I've never received an hour-long lecture by anybody about what their people have suffered, but people do say that we complain a lot about the past, and I agree with that. Game Changer, what's your thoughts on either of number 16's super chats?
Yeah, so on the last one, I have, and it's annoying. It only happened once that I can recall, and it did happen from a very annoying person. And he was God's chosen, and he how can I say this? He was God's chosen, and he just talked about that from time to time, while also overtly taking advantage of white privilege.
I was just about to say, he sitting there saying, we minorities need to stick together. I have heard a Jewish person say something like that, and I was like, but
no, it's basically like, and this was right around like the Trayvon era.
Okay.
Yeah, he was basically on some, yeah, we suffered too, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then, which leads into the bootstrap topic and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't bring these because this was somebody I worked with. So I don't really bring crap like that up. So it was always him that, brought crap like that up. And he obviously had race on the brain. So I think that comes from like lower tier God's chosen. Ones that didn't necessarily benefit from the community or a black sheep in his community, but yeah, and which he was. So, I mean, and that's just to address number 16. But what was Ike saying before that? Because it was something I wanted to cover.
I was just responding to we can look at our victimhood and also have a positive image. And then I was saying, 100%, but we're focusing on that positive image. First of all, just convincing people that they need that story. Secondly, is it possible, as I asked you, in the postmodern era to kind of create that? But that we're not saying, don't look over there, because there is a use of that by different cultures. Plus, also, I would say, regardless of what culture, whatever is going on, as an individual admonishment, we will tell you, hey, watch out for wallowing in whatever little stories, right? Doesn't matter whether they're true or not. Doesn't matter if it's tradition or not. As an individual, you, me, Bernard, will say it's salient. It makes sense to tell ourselves, watch out for wallowing in stories.
Right. So I see what you mean. And I agree. And God's chosen do that. While at the same time, you'll come across something like The Color Purple, directed by Steven Spielberg, type deal. Like, I mean, a group of people that have an extraordinary amount of control over the entertainment industry do seem to avoid that, teaching helplessness, of their own people. Like with the amount of control they have, there should be a new movie from a different perspective on the Holocaust every year. But really, the most popular book, at least in the last century, Diary of a Little Girl, was never made in the movie ever. Now it should have been, and I was looking for the movie when I was forced to read it, as a way to cheat, when I was forced to. So, Diary of Anne Frank, for those of you who don't know, is about a God's chosen girl during the Holocaust. True story, where she was living in the walls and the attic of a place to avoid capture, and she did for quite some time. And so it tells about her story, and she wrote in a diary to entertain herself, and that became very popular. They don't do that. They don't really teach. They're not spreading that. They're not saying, we were the victims of this, and I'm going to make this into a multi-million-dollar, Avenger Endgame type movie. And they could, but they don't. And I think that they understand the damage in doing this, having a long history of suffering. They're like, something, wallowing in it doesn't really help. They've come to the realization in their longer history of suffering, I'm sure in that history, the negative effects of wallowing in that. So, which is why they don't do it. And this isn't me throwing shade or taking a shot, but I have to say that they do allow us to do it. They do empower us to do it, while knowing the damages, which is why they don't really do it themselves. In fact, the only time I've really seen it in mainstream was Schindler's List, and that was in the 90s. So that was like the first and last movie I really seen that focused on the suffering of God's chosen during that era. And, it was just like a quick movie. In fact, this is embarrassing. A bunch of Nagagas went to go see it on a field trip, and they were in the same grade as me, but they went to a different high school. And they were just they were just so Nagagarish that that they were kicked out. They were kicked out the movie theater. They went to Castlemont High in Oakland, and they were kicked out the movie theater. And God's Chosen was clapping as they was getting booted out the movie theater because they was acting like some ignorant imbeciles, laughing at the screen and stuff. So then my high school got a free showing as a result, and we had to go and show them that we can do it with class and stuff. So they only let the honor students and stuff go. But yeah, that's the story on that. Yeah. And that was the first and last time I've seen a movie, covering that particular topic. Of course, it's a side effect of regular World War II movies, where the focus is the war or the focus is Saving Private Ryan. But, it's never like the main focus. And of course, like, Magneto, they'll do something like that. But generally speaking, it's never the main focus.
Number 16 in the building, back in here with another super chat, a $10 super chat. Appreciate it.
What do we get for $10? Everything you want. Everything? Everything. You.
All right. Appreciate the $10 super chat. He says, will us stop talking about or wallowing in our past fix 100% of our ADOS issues? Already right there, you're starting out the gate wrong, saying, well, will it fix 100%? Like, I don't think you're already starting out wrong with that one. But he said, the sad thing is most ADOS do not know about our past. Strongly disagree with that. We know our past very well. So what will that stop if we got away from it? It's not talking about the past. I just told you I love history. I love watching documentaries. I love reading up on history. I enjoy it. And I even like watching the movies about it. That's not the problem. The problem comes when we get to the point in a place where we're having a discussion about I can't even, I'm struggling to even think of an example. We could be having a discussion about anything today, and then we're going to relate it to racism in the past, and basically using the past, the history, as a way to explain why we're oppressed and we can't do A, B, and C today because of this oppression, this history of slavery, and this all of it's we use it as a part of our excuse making story. That's what's happening.
Remember, Bernard, we talked about the mental health thing. Well, first of all, right, we're having a conversation about post-nut clarity, frame, generally speaking, and then we talked about the fasting and then the building of habits and so on and so forth in order to address. So this is a very like granular individual person. What do you do? And again, we all can admonish ourselves to not wallow in stories. It's like that's what we're saying, right? Because it's a very, first of all, let me focus that we are talking about individuals, right? That is the main thing here. Then there's this thing about, you know, stop talking about or wallowing. Let me remove it from the whole race and slavery or past aspect. We talked in our mental health conversation about, let's say you take or you take a group of women or women in general, and you look at certain markers like, okay, and she represents one of these that are getting, you know, educated, check, job, check, getting money, check, all these other things, kind of relatively free. But then there's one thing where maybe she has a bad relationship history. But generally speaking, rather than just deal with this one aspect, there is a narrative that says I'm oppressed, which doesn't match with the rest of the checks, right? I'm oppressed, I'm this, I'm that, not protected, so on and so forth. But it's like, I have all these checks here that seem to suggest not. In other words, you take any particular, what the tendency is for any individual is to take one thing that's going wrong in their life that's particularly like they don't like, whatever they want to, then they take this big ready-made story to kind of just wallow away in that, why that one thing, why it's not their fault, you know? And it may be a combination of your fault plus not your fault. But we as individuals, it's not our problem. The world, as Kevin Samuels would say, the world does not owe you understanding. By that, I mean physical reality, the universe. It's like, it's not like, oh, well, it has to meet me where I'm at. It's like, no, you simply have to deal with how to get things done in the world. Given the fact that you're a human being, you can be taken over by evil spirits. We call it frame, or we call it the pre-nut fog, or whatever it may be, right? That basic idea is that we're going for the individual to repeat that fact. Anyways.
Yeah. Go for it.
Oh, no, you got it. You go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, we do put ourselves in these cycles. It's very unfortunate. And if you understand the strength of it, of telling a group, I mean, think of it like the coyote, you know. I think that at some point, and I'm talking about Roadrunner cartoons, I think at some point he just kind of understood that he's destined to not, you know, like this is what he's supposed to do. And it's because, you know, once you repeat a pattern long enough, you just assume that this is what's supposed to happen. So you take comfort in that, even if it's a bad thing. And that's the cycle that we find ourselves in. The coyote just keeps chasing the Roadrunner. He wouldn't know what to do if he did catch him, because he's taken comfort. He's gotten to the point where he's taking comfort in, well, that's a bad analogy. Okay, here's a better one. Lieutenant Dane, I've used this analogy before, from the movie Forrest Gump. Now, he was told, and it's probably true, that he had an ancestor that died in each and every single war that America fought. That's a tragic past. It's tragedy when a family member dies, whether it's honorably or otherwise. This is something that happened. What does he do with that understanding of his personal family's tragedy, with the knowledge of that history, with having those stories being told, you know, to him since birth? He joins the military and goes in the front line of the Vietnam War is what he does. Like, and he did that with the understanding that he's not going to come back. And he was actually broken up that he did come back. So basically he went into war with the expectation of dying, which, you know, some people would say is a bad thing. He didn't really see it that way because he just seen it as a natural course. What's going on with Black people is we're seeing failure as a natural course, because we, we look at our history and we keep repeating these stories over and over and over to ourselves. And with the women, they see relationship failure as a natural course, because that's the novels they read from, Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God, Waiting to Exhale, what was it? Color Purple, and so on and so forth. And, anything modern by Tyler Perry, like this is just something that we're repeating. Like, you're destined to fail in relationships, and it's okay because it's just part of who you are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So he said predeterminism. Can't say it, but he puts it out. He lays it out perfectly. Mr. Quentin.
Predeterminism.
Yeah.
Okay. You threw me off when you said you can't say it. Number 16 came back with another one. I appreciate it, and he actually make a good point on this one. I want to explore this. He says people talk about how laws, policies, and movements in the past screwed the man-woman dynamic and use it for reference. So why is this now an issue? That's the really good point, because we do look at what happened in the past, the laws in the past. A Game Changer just referenced how essentially, the increase in the welfare program basically just turned into a situation where you start paying people to be poor, and if you're paying a woman to be poor and single and have kids, if you're paying her to do it, you're going to increase the probability that she's going to be poor and single and have kids. It's just, you incentivize something, you're going to get more of it in a society. Yeah, that is true. So you make a fair point right there, but this is where it gets goofy. There was a conversation between Obsidian and Mr. Let Go. When Mr. Let Go was on his show about a month and a half ago or something like that. They were talking, and Mr. Let Go, part of what he talks about trauma that women, or black women, he's black, I think his focus is on black women. So they talk about the trauma that black women go through. They talk about the 1 in 4 or 1 in 3 stat that, been, sexually assaulted or inappropriately touched in some type of way, from the age of from 0 to 17 or something like that. They were talking about that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with having that discussion. The extent that it's a problem that needs to get corrected today. People need to take actions and do things today, right now. That is a modern problem. Even if it happened in the past, it's a modern problem today. Mr. Let Go, in the midst of the conversation, and keep in mind, this is somebody who specializes in talking about that. He said, and I believe, because they were talking about how a lot of times it gets swept under the rug in the black community, or people don't say anything about it or whatever. That's a modern problem that needs to get fixed amongst modern people. He brought into the conversation out of nowhere, and I believe that started, during slavery, when a young girl would be I don't want to use the words or whatever, by the master or overseer, and then nobody would say anything. And I think that's what's still going on today. We're not saying anything when it happens, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that has those two things are not connected. You can't go dig into 200 years ago circumstances in a life that's completely different from the circumstances in the life we live right now, and try to connect those two things. And it's like, when we're doing that, it's personal problems happening in a house amongst family, where Uncle Touchy is touching on one of the kids, and then the family sweeping it under the rug. That is a modern issue that needs to get corrected. That's a problem that needs to get corrected, and we don't have to go to slavery to correct that problem. So it gets goofy when we start doing that. Now,
I'm gonna have to jump off real quick, Bernard.
Okay. Oh, well, we at the 3-hour mark, so I mean, we can almost wrap it up if you. But
Yeah, so I kind of dropped it in the back chat, but anyway, I got a meeting in 10 minutes, so that's still quite enough time. I
all
got a
right, yeah,
meeting at 30.
we'll go ahead and wrap up then. But 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 yeah, so it's one thing to say that okay, these policies happen and these cultural movements happen, and that change the entire country, that change the entire culture, and we're kind of in the aftermath of that. I mean, that's one thing. That is one thing. But when we go back to slavery for everything, every problem we have to point it to oppression. When Dr. Umar Johnson was asked what is the biggest things facing black people today, none of it had anything to do with what black people can do. It all had to do what people are doing to us or what somebody has done to us in the past. And when that's the when when you can't even think past that part, nothing positive. And I don't, when I say positive, I don't mean feel good stuff, but I mean positive into forward, moving forward. If you can't think of anything in the realm of forward progress that could be done to fix the problem, then but everything is based off what's been done to us with our oppression, our abuse, and then no, that's not the right way to go about it in my assessment. But you do raise a good point that yes, history matter and things. There is a causal effect, and that you point out a good moment in time where we talk about a causal effect that something had on the culture. But I do believe that today, right now, fixing the families, yes, that's something that people need to do, and wallowing about the past is not the way to go about it.
Well,
all right, go ahead.
There's a difference, number 16. There's a difference between history and entertainment that's history based. There is an extraordinary difference in that, and because history is not really as polarizing as the movies that people make about it. So if you were to say go into the life, the day-to-day life of a rural, functioning, healthy Black post-slavery family, it probably wouldn't be as entertaining as The Color Purple. However, we watch The Color Purple for the ass whoopings and, everything like that. So it gives us a distorted view of history. And as a result, our reaction to it is a lot different, but when you stick to like the true stuff that happened, on it, it's not often like movie worthy. So, it's not as entertaining, but, you do get to learn about the nature of people and, perhaps policy should be put in place. But should policy be put in place over exaggerated fictions of history, like Color Purple? No.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up. Number 16 back in with another. I'm gonna start with Ike so he can give his last words real quick. But number 16 in the building, he said with another one. He says, "Why are we going back to that time, anyways? There's enough things in the 20s to 60s to talk about without doing that." That's my point. I don't understand why we go back to slavery. I do understand. I don't want to be too long-winded because Ike only got about 4 minutes at this point. He says, let's focus on that. Number 16, you put a lot of good stuff on the table. We probably will do entire shows on some of the things that you threw out there in Super Chatted. So thank you for your Super Chats. Thank you for actually driving the conversation for like the last 30 minutes of the show. We appreciate it. And we will do a follow-up because I think some of the things that you're throwing out there do need more adequate, well thought out answers. And we on the fly right now. So I'm going to pass it to Ike so we can go ahead and wrap up. But thank you, number 16. You made the last hour of the show work today.
I got 5. I got 5.
Huh?
I got 5 on it.
5 on what?
Should I sing it or are you gonna do it?
No, I've heard you sing before, Game Changer, so I'm good on that.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I don't want to leave on that note. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Ike. You can give us your final words before you go. And you're on mute. Mute.
Shout out. Yes, no longer a mute. Shout out to, again, number 16. Shout out to Game Changer. Shout out to Bernard. Great conversation today. I think that in one of the super chats by number 16, it was mentioned what I said earlier, which is the whole doing both thing is something, or doing all 16 things, but today we're talking about thing number one in time frame number one, is a key thing that we need to understand in any kind of conversation, right? So I like how, Bernard, you mentioned that you're talking about there's a difference between actionable, like playing a video game. Like, I gotta jump over the flame right now. I can't sit here talking about whether the flame was sent by the little turtle or by Bowser the boss. It's like, I just gotta jump over the flame. We'll figure these other things out also, right? But when we're talking about, and just like our first conversation about fixing society was about what people can do, immediate people, and then we broadened it out, right? So we have to always got to remember frames of time, contexts of space and time, and also what exactly it is we're focusing on. So today, basically from a personal side, how to get out of that fog whereby you don't have control, you feel like you don't have free will. We use the whole post-nut clarity as a very good focal point for having that whole conversation. But it is assumed that you're doing other things in your life as well, right? But that there's just the way you operate as an individual is not the way you operate in a group. The general and the soldier have different. The soldier doesn't want to die. He thinks, hey, I may die, but the general knows that some soldiers will have to die for the cause. In other words, there's always levels of analysis, positions, and so on and so forth. And we should always assume in good faith that we're also addressing the others. Today, we're focusing in a particular context, in a particular frame, particular narrative, in a particular scale. So with that, that's all I got. You guys can continue this great conversation, but until next time, I'm gonna have to check out.
All right. Thanks.
Peace out.
Thank everybody. We about to wrap this up. Game Changer, don't go nowhere. I do want to talk to you about something off the air. But all right, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for participating in the show today. Who like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat, cash app, anything you did. I appreciate you. And with that said, we are out of here. Peace.
Young man, do you want to succeed, to expand beyond your horizons? If you want to be free, then you must learn to master yourself, your thoughts, feelings, your body and spirit. Master your subjective consciousness. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. The world outside of yourself is ruled by those who are not ruled by their base instincts. Young man, go forth into the world after this. Meditate, contemplate, then plan and execute an action towards success. Take a risk, break the rules, and be disciplined within self.